apology, still everybody's mad at me. Can't react to my body, 'cause it's begging me to cheat. Begging me to cheat. You will see just how
dark. But when you come out, I see the stars. There are so many stars. But when you shine, you burn my heart and set me up in flames. 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 Set me up in Your light shines through the darkness, Your light shines through the darkness, Your light shines through the darkness of my heart. I can't look away. You burn into me. So I can't look away. You burn into me. You're so I need this fear to go, because it's all alone, and you cast it all. I need you near me now. Tonight is just so cold without your
Hello and welcome to another Belong.gg Arena Clash. And no, it's not a confused old man that's wandered into the studio. It's me, Big Hungry Phil, here for tonight's casting.
And me, Gio.
Well, hope you are all belted and braced and ready for another wonderful evening of Overwatch. I think we've got a couple of really interesting games coming up for you. First off is going to be Hunters versus Invincibles, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Very well done.
Thank you. There
Alzheimer's
you go.
hasn't kicked in yet.
No, not quite yet.
Not that old.
Give it a couple of months. We'll be there.
I'm really looking forward to that series. And
Oh, sorry. I thought you were saying really looking forward to me getting Alzheimer's.
No, oh god, no. I'm not that horrible. No, I'm really looking forward to that series.
Sorry, you were saying, Gio.
I'm really looking forward to that series because it seems like two really well-matched teams. And I think there's a very, very high chance of it potentially even going to a map 5. It could be a really, really close series.
So I'm right in thinking, and forgive me, I'm stealing your research, these teams have kind of a very similar track record in who they've played and who they've lost and who they've won against.
Yeah, actually, it's really interesting. When I was doing some research on these two teams, when we look at it, we see that both of them so far, they've played Saints and Claymores, who they both lost to, but they've also both won 4-0 nonetheless to, let me just check, Enigmas and Nighthawk. So they've actually faced the same teams so far in the season and had very, very similar outcomes. As I say, they both 4-0'd the series which they won, and they either 0-4'd or 1-3'd. Lost.
Are those both verbs?
We'll go with it.
Okay, fine.
The series that they lost. So these are really, really well-matched teams in terms of skill levels, and having that sort of almost control group, with the knowledge that they've played the same teams, is a really good way of being able to assess that.
Yeah, that's right. We've progressed into pure science here at Belong.gg. But think about it. There's no shame in losing to Saints and Claymores, two of the strongest teams actually in the series.
Yeah.
I couldn't beat them. Certainly not by myself.
Yeah, absolutely. These are two teams which, losing to them is not a comment on whether you're not a good team or anything like that. So I think it's definitely more important for us to look at these outcomes and these standings and be able to say, okay, well, this is just proof that these are very well-matched teams.
Well, we're going to shortly be moving over to look at the standings and see where we are. We're getting very close to the end of the group stage, getting close to moving off into playoffs. And we have just mentioned both of these teams, Saints and Claymores, sitting pretty at the top of the group. Saints on a 4-0 win streak at the minute, looking pretty good for them coming into playoffs.
Yeah, very unsurprising, I think, judging by what we've seen of the team and what we know about them. They, of course, won the last season. And there we see Invincibles and Hunters sitting in the middle there, each with 2 points. Those are going to be the teams that we're looking at to take from Group 1.
Yeah, it's really nice of them to just clearly delineate themselves into these three upper, lower, middle brackets for us.
Yeah.
It's really very convenient of them.
Yeah, Nighthawks have still got some work to do, though, so maybe next week, maybe this week,
Maybe
you never
this
know.
week, yeah. Moving into Group 2, again, we see kind of a similar pattern here. Two teams sitting right at the top, Spartans and Vikings on a 4-0 and 3-1 respectively.
Yeah, and Vikings and Leviathans are going to be another series that we're seeing today. That's going to be our second series of the day. So seeing they're obviously sitting very, very high up on that leaderboard. As you say, Vikings with their 3 points. They are in second. Leviathans just behind them at 2 points. And with Centurions on their tail. And then, of course, we have the Harriers and the Brawlers just kind of chilling out at the bottom.
Yeah, no pressure at the bottom. No one expects anything from you if you're 4-0 in the series. It's quite a nice position to be in.
Phil, come on. Well, as we look into Group 3, again, we do have this clear leader with the Steelers up there with 3 points. So they haven't actually yet played 4 of their series, but of course it is a slightly smaller group.
Yeah, and still looking very good. Guardians would have to do... Well, at this point, Guardians cannot catch up with the record that Steelers have put in place. Possibly we might see an equaliser, but this is looking pretty set. I don't think we're going to see much change on the back of today's games that obviously aren't being played on stream.
Yeah, and come on, Lionhearts, you're my local team.
I
need this.
I'm excited today. We've got
Vikings, that's your home team, right?
Vikings and Hunters, both very near to me. Anyway, Group 4, looking at Group 4, Arrows sitting pretty at the top. 3-0 Pirates hot on the heels with a 2-1 record, and as we go down the group, it's very nice. 3-2, 2-1-0 in terms of points moving down that table.
Yeah, it's actually very similar to Group 3 there, having the 3-2-2-1-0. It's exactly the same as we had in that previous group. So it just goes to show kind of in these slightly smaller groups, you have very similar outcomes. So we're going to be having a look at the rosters now.
Yeah, so those of you that have tuned into previous seasons of the Belong.gg Arena Clash may recognise some of these. Bonchef is a name that stands out to me, mostly because I've had a few interactions with him in the Belong.gg Discord. Certainly a very outspoken young man.
Yeah, and Invincibles is a team that I think I've casted twice so far. Well, I suppose that would mean that you have as well.
I also. Yeah.
Casted twice, so we're very familiar with these players. Of course, Evade with that very famous Genji, the Redstones being a very, very strong Reinhardt, and regardless of the fact it says Kachow, Yeehaw, and Yeet, those are not the names of the players, but the rest of the team made of Athan, Chlassi, Hikari. They're very, very good players, and we've come to expect quite a lot from them. So the pressure's on.
Yeah, absolutely, but it still should be a very entertaining match, as we said. Watch out for Evade in particular. Evade, when we have these discussions outside of the match, talking about, who was a stand-up player for you? Evade's Genji play in particular, because we're not at one of these elos where everything is just go goat's forehead all the time, and DPS players actually get a chance to do something with their DPS heroes. It's quite a sight to watch, so keep your eyes peeled for some Genji play.
Yeah, and we know that the Hunters, they feel comfortable in playing both dive and goats compositions, so it could be that we actually see some flexibility coming from them, especially as at this point, after seeing at least 2 broadcasts that do have the Invincibles in them, we know what sort of heroes it is they like to be playing. They're very fond of the Reinhardt, of the Zarya. They really like playing the Ana, Hikari on the Ana, as well as, well, Evade's quite flexible. We have actually seen him on Zarya when they want to play something more tank heavy, but of course playing those projectile DPS as well. So with that sort of knowledge of their kind of comfort picks and what they feel very comfortable on, that could help sort of influence how Hunters go into this next game, especially if they feel confident, as they've said, in different compositions that they could run.
Yeah, Hunters for us as an observing team, we've not actually had a chance to see them play yet, so quite excited to see who the standout players for Hunters are going to be. Obviously, I've highlighted Bonchef already. Bonchef, I think, is the main tank player for Hunters.
No, Bonchef's flex DPS.
Oh, well, that'll show me. It's because he was boasting about his Reinhardt play in the Discord. That's why I thought he was the main tank.
Well, something that's actually really important to note about Hunters is they have 2 players who like to flex between who's going to be playing main tank, who's going to be playing off tank. They're actually both, as far as I'm aware, very comfortable in off tank. That's sort of their main role that they would play perhaps outside of the tournament. We're talking, of course, about Wicked and Radmello, but they frequently like to switch who's going to be playing the main tank, and that's something that can maybe be taken advantage of if going into something tank heavy where you want that really strong Reinhardt, for example, who knows exactly what they're doing, and so it'd be interesting to see who we end up seeing on that main tank role, or how they decide who is going to play them, and whether Invincibles decide to play around that.
Well, we're only a few seconds out from actually seeing what decisions these teams are going to make going. First off to Lijiang Tower, starting in Control Center. Based on what we know about the people that we've got playing tonight, any thoughts on what we can expect to see? Are these likely to be the locked-in roles?
Well, when we look at Invincibles, this definitely does kind of look, again, as I mentioned, their comfort picks. However, what we know about Control Center as a map is it is very goats favored. We very infrequently see people flex off of these kinds of compositions, so it would be interesting to see if they do attempt to play this into what Hunters look like they're coming out with, and perhaps go back and change, which of course if they do could put them at an ultimate disadvantage, so they may just have to commit.
Yeah, certainly don't want to be in the position where you have to just give up control of the point, but here we go. The pedal is hitting the floor, and Hikari with an early kill taking Wicked out. That is Invincibles properly on the front foot, getting everybody down in before the point even unlocks. To hear the team kill bell is crazy.
And there we go. I said that they would have to commit. It looks like they are most likely going to stick with it when you have a kind of opening team fight like that. And with Hikari being, the person getting first blood in the fight, that's the support. That's got to hurt a little bit.
Yeah, and look at the ultimates from Invincibles. We've already got Shatter. In fact, there it comes. Right down, gets 3. Bonchef gets the Zarya bubble to keep themselves alive, but Aethon and the Redstones managing to just get in over the top of all of that, get a quick 2, and we've got the Dragon Blade. Evade in the back, not able to find anything with it, does secure the D-Mech with the help of Aethon, and that is going to be 2 ultimates committed for Invincibles, but honestly, with the state of how they're playing, maybe they didn't even need the ultimates.
Well, yeah, that Dragon Blade there did seem a little bit like BM, but one thing that I think the Hunters need to be looking out for is taking advantage of mistakes that Invincibles are making. For example, we saw the Redstones Redstones charge in, even though he had a Discord orb, which is something that can be easily exploited if you know what to look for.
There's the high noon, but that shield coming right up to block it, and Etihad gets the eat onto 2 of those kills. Good presence of mind there, and gets the Graviton Surge. Hunters are quite in that kill feed, not getting a huge amount in terms of actual kills, but, you know, good performance metric, and we're going to see Hunters finally getting a little bit of a chance to get a foot on the payload. Big Shatter comes in, takes the Redstones, takes the carry, comes in, swinging with the hammer. Bonchef on the Reinhardt, as I sort of thought he was going to be. Looking pretty good. Evade takes a dive over the side to aid that reset. 60% of the point captured from Invincibles, so not terrible. Still lots of time to play with.
Yeah, and Bonchef kind of perfectly waiting with his timing there to use the Earth Shatter, waiting until the nano boost on the Redstones had come to its end, so he no longer had that 300 HP buff as well as the damage reduction, able to land the Earth Shatter perfectly and bring down the rest of his team.
Oh, but here we go. Out comes the Blade. Blade gets the DMAC and the kill onto Etihad Steven with a follow-up onto Wicked. They did have the support, but it wasn't there. That sound barrier not enough to keep the majority of the team alive. Invincibles looking to be in a pretty good position here. Very, very low health for Romello as they come around the corner, able to just get out of there with a bit of help from iBroadwell, swooping back in on the Zoom Yada to help keep his team alive. And in the team fight, there's the Shatter, takes Etihad, but not enough because the Graviton comes in over the top, and Fire Strike for 3 is pretty good going. Diva Bomb might not have been necessary, but Hunters hold on to the point and get close to equalizing in terms of control.
This is certainly a series of ultimates so far. We haven't seen any dry fights, even the first one so far in the game. I was a little bit questioning the fact that iBroadwell brought out the Transcendence when there were only 3 of them on the point. Ultimately, it worked out for them. They managed to take advantage.
Oh, that's the second time we've seen that. Aethon having the high noon just completely nullified by Etihad. That's going to be a real unfortunate situation. You could have used that to buy quite a bit of space in the team fight. Hikari does have the nano boost ready to go. Not seeing it come out just yet, but the Redstones might have just found the opening, and yeah, what a door to open. Behind that is the death of Bonchef and Wicked, and the follow-up onto iBroadwell. Redstone's doing most of the lift in there for his team.
Yeah, and already has next Earth Shadow ready to go for this next fight, which we've seen so far can be really devastating. In fact, so many ultimates popping up on the side of Invincibles. I think we really want to be looking out for Ethiat coming into the next Hunters fight, because so far he's been able to use that defense matrix really well.
Well,
here's the
Dragon Blade, finds iBroadwell before the support order can come online, sending the Zenyatta down. The follow-up taking Wicked out of the fight as well. 3 with a help from Atcha. Evade with a follow-up onto Etihad, and the final one just for good luck taking Radmello out of the fight. Aethon finds Bonchef. 8% of the point left to go. Hunters have got a lot to do even just to get back in on this fight.
And you said it there, Phil. We've got so little time to go. I don't even know if Hunters are going to reach the point.
Oh, it was a good try. We did see Bakot trying to come in there with the sound barrier at the last second, just get sniped out the air by Hikari.
But that's one of the things, is when you've been pushed back that far, it's really hard to kind of come through those really small choke points to be able to even access the point. And that's one of the really big powerful things about running a Reinhardt on Control Center. We've very historically seen him be the favored main tank, as you can use your shield to block off those choke points and then have a crossfire set up. But we'll be moving on into Gardens for our next point, and I'm pretty excited to see what we're going to be coming out with. It's actually looking like Invincibles are thinking, you know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, very much so. Those DPS picks really working out. It's unfortunate Aethon not really had a lot of luck with the high noon, but clearly doing enough work just with the primary fire to generate those ultimates, so can't be feeling too bad about that just yet, especially coming in, having taken the first map in the Control Point series. Both teams here going for different rotations. Invincibles getting early possession of the point, managing to get to a position to try and force Hunters to walk into this wall of damage. Oh, that's going to be a really dangerous position. Bonchef getting charged out, does receive the Zarya bubble, but it's not enough as Bonchef falls. But we are seeing a bit of an equalization here. Hunters, whilst the Redstones was out dealing with Bonchef, able to just get in through the rest of the team and do the damage they needed to take the point.
Yeah, well, we saw the Redstones trying to be really quite aggressive there, but he had to back up a little bit, because once he managed to bring Bonchef down, it actually brought up the
Hammered down? I don't think so. Blackout had other plans for that ultimate, I'm afraid, Redstones.
Oh no, but it actually brought up the charge of the Zarya, which meant in order to protect his team from this newly high charge Zarya, he had to back up, shield his team instead of being able to go in super aggressive. But it looks like Invincibles are actually going to be going around this rotation that Hunters did in the first place.
Yeah, and we do have at least one ultimate coming up online. We're not far off both the High Noon and the Dragon Blade, and potentially the Nano Boost, and both of those could be big. Nice stun coming through, and Redstones with the swing of the hammer sending Bonchef down into the depths. Graviton Surge coming out, Aethon in the back, not able to find anything with that High Noon. Third time in a row and nothing out of it. Atcha and Radmello doing work for their teams on the Zarya both. Look at this, Atcha with 100 charge, finds the D-Mech, is in a position just to start raining in that damage, focusing down the enemy Zarya coming in. Graviton committed, Earth Shatter comes in over the top. You maybe don't want to stack those tank ultimates, but, you know, a one fight is a one fight.
Yeah, and we saw in that situation what you end up having when you decide to run the Ana instead of the Zenyatta, and that is you won't have a Transcendence necessarily available to protect yourself from a Graviton Surge. So we saw Ibro well just throwing on the nade down there, but when you've got a Reinhardt cleaving into the Graviton Surge like that, it's just not going to be enough. You won't be able to provide the amount of healing, and they didn't have the sound barrier ready, but they may have it now for the next engage.
You're quite right. Reinhardt cleavage is good, but might not be enough to get the job done. We are going to see some ultimates coming into the fight. There's the Rally for Wicked. That's going to let Hunters get in and ignore some of the damage coming in from Invincibles. They've just got to get in and get some kills. Hammer Down only finds one, and Etihad, again, that's 3 of 4 ultimates from Aethon eaten just by Etihad, and Hunters looking like they're coming up big in the kill feed here. Here's the D for self-destruct, finds 2, and we're just going to see Chlassi doing their best here just to buy a little more capture progress, but too much focus fire sees them sent right back to spawn.
I have to say, I'm really impressed with Etihad at the moment. I think he's really, I don't want to call an MVP this early in the series, but I think he's really providing a lot of value for his team. Not only is he eating those potentially dangerous and lethal ultimates coming out from the enemy team, but also being able to get that much value out of a self-destruct, especially in a meta like this where it can be very easily blocked, is really something special.
Shatter was pretty big, but not in a position to follow up, especially with the sound barrier coming in over the top. Does also receive the Nano Boost, just going to come in and swing that hammer and hope for the best. Finds Wicked, not able to find a second generator Shatter, but it comes right down into the face of Bonchef, and Bonchef able to clean up, taking out Hikari, taking out Aethon. Hunters look like they are going to take possession and keep control of this. The Graviton Surge finally coming out, but there just isn't the damage there. Atcha 6 does take Bonchef out of the fight, but themselves at the same time, and it's a high charge Zarya and a very, very low charge D.Va Pilot, just trying to keep this point alive. To be honest, they can probably afford to back out here and come at this again.
They can afford it, but they could have been in a position where they could have taken it. You know, the win condition in that last fight for Invincibles was that Earth Shatter landing. Of course, Bonchef jumped right in at the last moment to be able to block it, and that put Invincibles in a really dangerous position. But now, having taken possession of the point once again, this puts them in a position where they can have another go at this, but they're going to have to watch out for Bonchef's Shatter.
Yeah, Aethon though has swapped over onto the Doomfist, I assume, just to try and get back in on that fight, putting them a little bit of a disadvantage here. Doomfist not particularly meta at the minute, having received a bunch of nerfs over the past 6 months or so. The Redstones gets the upper hand over Bonchef. Classic Innovate with the follow-up. These DPS picks working out once again. We're getting close to one fight territory, 93 to 99, and Invincibles very much with the upper hand here. I'd be very surprised if we're even going to see a recon test from Hunters.
Yeah, I really don't think it's going to happen. I think Invincibles, in the last point there, what they decided to do, what they decided to go for was, we're going to go all in on our aggression. You know, we see their leader, the Redstones, their Reinhardt. He's a very aggressive Reinhardt, as we see in the play of the game right now. So when they came back with the Doomfist and the Tracer, those are heroes who can be really up in your face and very intimidating, put a lot of pressure on the enemy team from all sorts of angles, and ultimately that was something that Hunters, maybe like they sort of were thrown off a little bit after losing that point right at the end, right as they could see the finishing line, and having that much aggression in their face, be able to go onto multiple targets as well. It just gave Invincibles the chance for the cleanup that they needed in order to get to the 100% mark.
Yeah, I do like this strategy. People are sort of bored of goats. But I love having the Reinhardt as just this big battering ram that you put at the front of your team and you just smack it into the enemy, because if it's done right and you're there to support your Reinhardt, it works, as we just saw, particularly from that play of the game.
I have to say, like, one thing that we do see coming out from these teams, and we've seen indications of it from both sides, both Bonchef and the Redstones, is I'm a really big fan of Reinhardts who can play aggressively, but they also know when to back up and protect their team, and when to be in the right place at the right time, when we saw Bonchef jump down with the shield, or when we saw the Redstones back out because of the high charge Zarya that they were going against. Little plays like that show you that actually this is a Reinhardt we can trust, and this is someone that we do want to be leading our team, and that's when you kind of know that you're probably going to be going in with the right idea, because if you're going in blindly aggressive, it's not going to work. But when you can come up with things like that that actually allow you to enable the aggression that is going to be on your team and work around it, then that's when you're going to have a really solid round. And even though that ended up going to Invincibles 2-0, it really kind of diminishes the fact that this was, in some cases, pretty close.
So what I'm taking away from that, guys, is get you a Reinhardt that can do both.
Get a good Reinhardt.
Get a good Reinhardt. There we go.
Easy.
That's how you win. Find a good Reinhardt. Or become the good Reinhardt yourself. Put down the
That
DPS
sounds
picks.
hard.
It's a lot of
sounds
work.
pretty hard.
He's got a hammer. He's got a shield. It's just.
But something that's really worth mentioning off the back of that is our next map is actually going to be Watchpoint Gibraltar, which is not a Reinhardt map in the slightest.
No,
if
that's
you're playing Reinhardt on Watchpoint Gibraltar, you're probably throwing.
Yeah, hoping to see a lot more Winston. It's a very, very dive. It's one of the best dive maps that there is going. There's so much high ground right up until point 3.
Well, yeah, it's going to really play into Evade's hands, particularly because obviously he'll be able to play that Genji that he loves playing so much. It'll be interesting to see what Athan goes for, because obviously we very frequently see him on the hit scan role. We've seen him on McCree a lot, and obviously so far we've only seen Hunters playing this sort of GOATS composition, so I'm not really sure, what to expect of which DPS, what the DPS prowess going against players like Evade is going to be like. And of course, now we're seeing Bonchef. We were both right, Phil.
Yeah.
I said he was a flex DPS.
Everybody
You
wins.
said we're going to be seeing him going up on the Widowmaker. So it's actually looking like we're going to have a sniper versus sniper kind of situation instead of a straight dive.
Yeah, it's all going to be down to who can get the better positioning and, of course, who has the better mechanical aim. But anyway, I'm going to stop going over the really obvious points. Invincibles on attack first. Nice rotation. Coming in for the classic recon test on top of Blue Box. Have bought a huge amount of space. Redstones on the Diva and Atcha6 on the Winston, working together beautifully in tandem there, just leaving Athon and Hikari right in the back line to just push that cart. It's a testament to just how good that dive was that Atcha and the Redstones were able to get in without needing the Mercy to come with them.
Yeah, and so far we've still not even had our first blood, and we're getting the payload a little bit further. The Redstones being hyper-aggressive here on the Diva.
Yeah,
and of
there's the
course,
first kill.
there's the first kill.
Bonchef gets the better of Evade, but there's a lot of progress being gained on the payload, and Athon getting the upper hand, of course, having the Mercy pocket there to keep you alive and in the fight, giving you that mulligan to get back in again. Always pretty useful. Atcha6 falling to about half health there. We've got, Athon able to get the kill in onto Radmello. Is going to help Atcha win that fight. It's always good to have your fights won by someone else winning them for you. Dives the Brigitte, always a risky trick, because you don't want to dive into the face of that shield. That's exactly what happened, got stunned. Had to give up ground. Atcha6 coming right back into it. The Redstones, again, not looking great from health. Hunters getting the upper hand of this fight in terms of who is alive. Atcha6 does eventually find Broadwell, and here is the self-destruct. Is it going to find anything? No, but it does find a little bit of space. Hikari bringing Chlassi back into the fight. In the meantime, unfortunately, before they could get remech, Bonchef finds 3 Redstones. Radmello manages to bring Hikari back into the fight, and we've got ultimates to play with now. We've got the rally, we've got the primal rage, we've got the self-destruct. Hunters have everything at their disposal here, so this fight is going to be a very difficult one for Invincibles to break.
Yeah, and I think a really important thing that we need to be noting about the differences in the way these two teams are playing is actually the support play. The fact that Hunters are playing the Brigitte is really important, because it means that her standing by Bonchef and being able to keep that Widowmaker safe, because generally in this sort of composition you want to be diving onto that the Widowmaker to try and get rid of her, and that's just not an option. But it also means that she's shielded when she gets res, so she's pretty much being kept alive completely. And also you have to consider the fact that they're running a Zenyatta, whereas Invincibles are running a Lucio, who provides significantly less healing and also doesn't have that Discord Orb.
Yeah, there's a lot working particularly from Hunters to just support Bonchef as much as possible, all of that extra damage boost is going to mean that 9 times out of 10 you're going to win that matchup against Aethon. Aethon has started to level the field slightly though, taking Broadwell out of the fight, but back up right there to bring him back in. Here's Evade with the Dragon Blade, manages to find a quick two supports going down. Sound Barrier coming in over the top to help keep them alive through this. The Redstone's falling dangerously low on the D.Va, pops the self-destruct. Nothing coming out of that from Etihad though, and this payload looks like it's maybe starting to get a little progress on it. It's stalled out for a long time.
But the really important thing, Phil, is the fact that did you see how much Invincibles had to invest in that fight to even get to this point? So many of them went and dived up onto where Bonchef was sat. They brought out the Dragon Blade, they used their sound barrier, they brought out so many of their ultimates. I believe they actually used the Primal Rage as well, and that's just to get control of the payload once again, whereas Hunters were just kind of politely sitting exactly where they were, having not been, dislodged from their spot until that moment.
Yet still we are seeing a nice bit of aggression coming out from Invincibles. They're chasing down that Mercy Widow duo, putting a lot of pressure on it, meaning that there's nothing really that they can do, because when you've got to constantly rotate out of the way of a 800-pound gorilla with a Tesla cannon, frankly you can't afford to line up your shots. We have seen the Primal Rage come out. Here's the self-destruct from the Redstones coming in over the top, not finding anything. Evade with yet another Dragon Blade. Beautiful transition out of the D-Mech. Remech animation finds 2. Bonchef and Wicked falling to the dangerous butter knife, and Invincibles, having committed that, are in a very good position trying to roll this into the next point. Evade still in the back, managing to find a last kill onto Broadwell, and Hunters are going to have to back out here.
Yeah, the key thing there was finally managing to actually isolate those support heroes on the side of Hunters. They managed to get the Mercy on her own, as well as the Zenyatta, and when they are not only separated from their team, but also from one another, then they're very, very sort of at the disposal of the enemy team. There's very little that they can actually do to help themselves. So moving on to this point 3, if the first 2 points were not Widowmaker heavy, then this definitely is going to be, although Hunters...
Yeah, wholesale bunch of swaps there, moving it over onto the 3-tank, 3-support lineup we know and love as GOATs. It was a good try from Atcha6 there, has not died in a while, was on a 12-character kill streak on the back of that, finally falling to the whip flail from Wicked, so they are 1 down in this fight moving through. Aethon having to give up ground, too much damage coming in, not able to stand there and free snipe down main as much as they would love to.
It'll be interesting to see how quickly Hunters are able to build up their ultimates here, especially for someone like Bonchef. It's going to be very hard to get in the damage required onto a composition like this to actually build up the Earth Shadow very quickly. He's sort of been hanging around at this 40% for a little while now.
Yeah, it says something when your Zarya is managing to get more ult charge than your Reinhardt, and Evade with the dash reset gets a quick 2, finds time to pop that Dragon Blade and take Bakot out of the fight. Etihad does manage to get the remake. Is that going to be enough? Maybe just enough to try and contest the payload a little bit longer, but 2 minutes 22 left to go on the point. Honestly, I don't know what Hunters can do to stop Invincibles coming through at this point.
Yeah, they're right up in their spawn here. They just need someone to touch.
Yeah, Evade just dashing continuously at the door. Oh, Bonchef! That is one of the biggest feels bad mans I have seen in a long time, getting booped off at the end with the Earth Shadow.
Oh no. Well, at least I suppose he has the kind of recompense, the solace of knowing that it wasn't actually going to do anything anyway.
Yeah.
But it does mean that Hunters, as they come into their own attack here, they know that 2 minutes 11 is the time to beat, to get it all the way to the end.
Yeah, it felt to me like Hunters spent the first point defense was actually very, very good. That Widowmaker paying huge dividends for them. But once they were knocked out of that defensive position, they just never managed to get their feet back into the stirrups to continue the defense.
This is the thing, is the sort of what they were trying to run is actually one of those sorts of things that once it gets dislodged, it's very, very hard to bring it back, because it's something you actually have to spend time to set up. And actually, the thing about that is it's not even because the Widowmaker can't get back, because of course she has her grapple, the Mercy can use her Guardian Angel to get back, but having the Brigitte up there to actually get back in that position to be able to help out, she doesn't have any vertical mobility, and that's not something you can just set up in the middle of a fight once again. But Invincibles, they look like they're actually going to be starting to set up well, in a similar kind of place, actually maybe a little bit further forward, but sort of what I kind of want to call sort of classic Invincible style at this point. Evade is on Genji, who saw that one coming.
Yeah, that's the crystal ball coming up big. We said watch out for Evade on the Genji, and they have been performing quite nicely here. Hunters. If this is what comes out of spawn for Hunters, it is interesting because it's sort of protect the President without a Bastion, without a McCree.
Well, yeah, this is why you see the Moira coming out, because you can actually sustain on those tanks. But actually, it's looking like they may switch things up.
Yeah, I think that was
go.
interesting. Using the grav to
The Holt.
Yeah, the Holt. Sorry, thank you. The Holt, just to try and do a little bit of scouting. Radmello unfortunately missed that dive, not able to go up and contest blue box, which is the classic defense that we see coming out on point A of Gibraltar. Evade just going to stand at the back, pepper in some of these shurikens, build a little bit of ult charge. We have seen just how devastating Evade can be once they've got that ultimate online. There's usually 2 or 3 per kill. Bonchef with the skill shot,
so
not
close.
quite finding a mark though.
And that's really the thing that what we saw with Evade doing there, with the way that he was actually trying to get in that poke damage, he's just trying to avoid Bonchef and his shots, because we've seen how, well, I was going to say terrible they can be, but I mean terrible for Invincibles there.
Yeah, luckily Bonchef is used to people trying to evade him, but we do have I Broadwell swapping over onto the Hansa, so we've got double sniper for Hunters now. Etihad falls, unfortunately, only 44% of the way to that ultimate. Hunters not looking great for ult here. Invincibles much further forward in that progression.
It's interesting that they've still been sticking with the Moira. I mean, even at this point in a fight, you would expect the Moira to already have her coalescence, and you know, having heroes that are going to be a little bit more spread out from one another, which is why you run the Mercy. I don't necessarily see how the Moira is more valuable than a Zenyatta, and she hasn't built up the coalescence there. Wow, Ethan, that's dirty.
That's Bonchef finally finds the equalizer, but of course there is a Mercy still online. Hikari pops the Valkyrie, comes swooping back in. Bonchef falling low, having to go back into spawn, but in the meantime, Evade with a dash reset and then just the flat dragon kill. Nothing left to use that blade on for Evade. Take that, floor.
Yeah, I'm wondering if that was perhaps like a lapse in communication or something, because that didn't seem like the ideal time to be using the Dragon Blade. I feel like maybe he could have got more value out of it later, but it's not the first time that we've actually seen Evade use a Dragon Blade to end a fight. But look at Eyebrow
It's going to have to
Dragon
be
Strike.
a 900 IQ prediction on where people are going to go. Does start to get a little bit of damage out of it, not able to find the kill that they were maybe hoping for. Infrasight is going to be very, very useful for Broadwell. Does manage to finally take down Evade with that Stormbow. Radmello coming in, finds the enemy Widowmaker, not able to actually turn it into anything. Back up, brings Broadwell back into the fight, but this payload has just been sat under the overpass without really getting any progress for a good couple minutes now. Invincibles starting to turn things around. It did seem Hunters finally going to start to buy a little bit of progress in this point, but there's just nothing they can do against the relentless DPS presence from Invincibles.
Yeah, it's getting closer and closer to that 1 minute mark here, and this is where Hunters have to start to think, okay, you know, do we keep going with what we're doing and actually be able to build up these ults that we might be able to use to win a fight, or do we actually start to change things up here and risk that?
Ooh, that's going to be pretty good. Broadwell taking 8th on out of the fight, but you've got to get back in and recontest that. That's unfortunate. You can't let that Mercy get the res, and in the meantime gets taken out by Evade. Evade now has the Dragon Blade online again, and it was only less than a minute ago since we saw the last one, so expect this to come out just as, you know, a final bit of sweeping at the end.
We're actually seeing Broadwell now switching onto the Sombra. It's a very slow building ultimate, the EMP, so I'm not even sure if he thinks he's actually going to be able to get that in these next 20 seconds, but he might be able to get a hack on Athan if he is lucky, or if he plays his cards right, that could make it a little bit easier for his team, but he's been caught out.
Yeah, that's unfortunate, coming out on the Sombra just as your enemy's sights come up, and here's what we were looking for. Evade with the Dragon Blade finds Wicked, not quite able to catch up. No, manages the D-Mech, not finally getting the kill. Bonchef gets a final parting blow, but it's not going to be enough. Hunter's full held on Gibraltar.
I mean, Invincible's full health.
Sorry, Hunters were full held, is what I was going
Hunters
for.
would
yes.
like to think they full health.
But you know, there's a consolation prize. Bonchef as Widowmaker. Let's have a look at this play of the game.
Let's see what's going on here. I mean, his Widowmaker was absolutely formidable. Oh, before the remake as well.
Yeah. And there's the full look, chasing that Mercy right back up to the top. Gets a couple of shots in on the Winston. Finds Schlassie on the Lucio. So, you know, a great play of the game. It's a shame it didn't translate into that W for them, but still should be really happy with that performance at least.
Yeah, and that's kind of the frustrating thing is when you've got such a star player, and there are obviously a number of very talented players on this team. For example, Ibralwell's also showing a lot of flexibility, but if you can't work in that same kind of coordinated way, and I think one of the big mistakes, honestly, that Hunters made in that last map was the fact they weren't running a Zenyatta on their attack, and not only does that mean that you don't have the Discord Orb available, which provides that 30% damage reduction or damage boost. It allows people to be able to have 30% more damage onto other
I'm glad
heroes.
you cleared that up for me.
You're welcome. So you don't have that, so that makes it actually kind of harder to bring people down, but it means you don't also necessarily have that streamlined target calling, which people rely on a lot, and you often had the Zenyatta doing that for you. Of course, Ibralwell, their general Zenyatta player, went onto the Hanzo, which is fine, but running the Moira perhaps didn't necessarily bring them what they wanted. I didn't actually see anything really coming out as far as coalescence
I
goes.
sort of understand the theory of wanting to run the Moira, which is if you see this a lot in teams that are running up against a DPS composition where the team normally runs a triple tank, triple support lineup. They run that Moira because there's so much healing available. It mitigates a lot of what the DPS composition can do. Of course, unless you are getting that target focus, and unless the Moira can actually get in and find value, then it is, as you were saying, much better to have that Zenyatta. One of the things I like about a Zenyatta is you can sort of be a de facto target caller without having to do any target calling. You just go, that guy's got a purple
Yeah,
thing.
you call where the Discord Orb is, and you can tell if a Zenyatta is food. you can tell if a Zenyatta is being particularly effective because you'll be able to see his assists come up in the kill feed. Got what a kill feed was called then. But in the kill feed, you'll be able to see him come up, and obviously that's, as I say, that's how you can figure out if someone's doing some really effective target calling or if a team are really good at following it. But of course, if there isn't even a Zenyatta being played, you don't have that. But it's looking like something that Hunters are they're going back to here on Hanamura.
Yeah, finally moving over to Hanamura. I've got to say my analytical side has been momentarily derailed by the fact that we came into that map looking directly at some food. It's been a while, everybody. They don't feed us up long. We have to forage for our own sustenance. Bonchef taking an early position here, looking to get a bit of charge with the fire strike. Slightly mistimed that, I think. Hit the doors, not getting anything out of that. It happens. It happens to the best of us.
But again, it's looking like Invincibles are going to be coming in with quite an aggressive composition as well, with Evade trying to look to get that opening pick to allow his team to rush on through to the point.
Yeah, Matt Aethon continuously falling very, very low. I think Hikari getting a lot of value there. Redstone's finally been caught. They are now effectively 1.5 down, having lost the Diva mech. Bonchef comes roaring back in with an answer, taking 3 stones. The Redstones and Aethon right the way down, and that's going to be back to spawn for Invincibles. I'd be surprised if they keep running the Doomfist in this situation, frankly. It seems like a very difficult character to get value out of coming into this very bulky, very heal-centric comp, but it doesn't matter when Evade can just pick apart so much of the defensive lineup of Hunters.
I think the decision to back out originally was actually a little bit late because we saw Hikari go down when he could have backed out straight away, but actually with Evade getting these shots, she's just giving that opening for the team to sort of grace gently onto the point.
Yeah, and that's going to be pretty much all they wrote for that point. Redstone's getting him a little salutation, went a little bit too far over the edge, falls down. Broadwell manages to take out Evade, but it's not going to be enough. Not entirely sure what was going through the Redstone's mind there, but they are at least back ready for this attack onto point B.
Yeah, and they have 6.5 minutes, so for the Redstones' respawn isn't going to be too much of a problem, but we do have a number of ultimates coming into this next fight. It's actually looking like we have about 3 or 4 on each side. Invincibles, they're going to have those tank ultimates ready to go, as well as the nano boost, but Hunters can protect themselves with the Transcendence.
Yeah, Invincibles crucially missing that at the minute. Hunters managing to get a quick 2 there, taking out most of the tank line, in fact all of the tank line for Invincibles. They're going to want to back out. You don't want to take that without your Reinhardt and without your Zarya. Unfortunately, Agisix did use the Grephodon Surge in that fight, so they've not got it going forwards. It's a shame to have nothing to show from it, especially when you had a Space Jam combo online.
Yeah, it's a shame because what you would like to see is sort of these opening fights being like economy pushes, where you just kind of do them to build up the rest of your ultimates and put yourself in an advantageous position for the forthcoming fights. they have the rest of their ultimates available, so it could still work out.
Ooh, big shatter comes out. So the Meteor Strike coming in on the top finds Radmel as well. Aethon with a quick 1-2 punch there. Evade with a follow-up, taking Etiyat out of the fight. And Evade is just going to be completely uncontested on the backline. Redstone spinning that shield wildly. Pretty confident in what they've got coming out. Not entirely sure where that charge was going, Bonchef. And that's a really quick capture from Invincibles.
Yeah, that's going to be really difficult to beat. And actually, Radmel is going to be feeling the sting a little bit after being brought down by that Meteor Strike, because the center of a Meteor Strike only does 300 HP of damage. And so that's obviously not enough to just kill a Zarya on her own. And Meteor Strikes are quite hard to pull off anyway. But onto a tank, that's... Actually, I'm actually quite impressed, and we saw Radmello actually try to change it up at the end there, switching onto the Mei, which we do frequently see come out on point B because you can use it as a stall tactic, but it just wasn't fast enough, and now that means Hunters, they've got to beat 5 minutes and 16 seconds if they want to be in the favourable spot.
It really is a tall order, and, you know, we looked at this coming into this map thinking, oh, well, you know, Hunters Invincibles, they've got a very, very similar record. They've both beaten and won against the same people within this group. Frankly, Invincibles looking like they've got the upper hand here, and the scoreline reflects that as well. Hunters seem to be flailing a little bit. They've got to do something really impressive here if they want to take Hanamura away from Invincibles.
I think something that I have to say about the Invincibles, which you can't really say about the Hunters, is the fact that, yes, they can be flexible, but they all still stick to their one role. And that's the thing, is it means that when they scrim, when they practice, when they come up with their strategies, when they decide how these things are going to go down, they know what job everybody's going to be doing on each map, and they can practice that in their own time, whereas Hunters are changing things up per match. We've seen Bonchef on the Reinhardt, but now it's looking like he's going to be coming out on the Zarya with Ibrawell, maybe trying to get an opening pick on the Widowmaker, and they're just shaking things up a lot, and you have to question how healthy that is for the team's outlook.
Yeah, nothing coming out of that initial initiation from Radmello, not able to get any early ult charge, so we're slightly short on that pile driver. Invincible's giving a little bit of space here, but Broadwell looking to take the high ground. But Radmello comes in around the back, manages to knock most of Invincibles off the point. Not a huge amount of follow-up, maybe just trying to slowly build up that minefield. Broadwell taking a full face full of Fire Strike. Etihad moving over away from the Demon for the first time this map, moving over onto the Hanzo. Managing just to trying to isolate Hikari. Does get slept whilst they are trying it. I like Broadwell's position here, trying to get through the windows, trying to take out a squishy target, but it's not really working out for them just yet, especially when you've got Evade, who has demonstrated what a powerful Widowmaker they are, just free-firing into the courtyard from the side, completely uncontested.
Yeah, I think Hunters here have been trying to go for a sort of strategy where they try to be quite aggressive and get these sort of poke damage, get maybe an opening pick, but basically try and build up ult charge. But the thing is that you have to consider, maybe Redstone's Earth Shadow you have to consider, but you have to consider the fact that you're also helping build up the enemy ult charge. And so while you can be very distracting on that Wrecking Ball...
There's the hell of a shatter, comes in, gets pretty much everybody from Hunters on the ground. Redstones follows up on 3, goes in with the charge, trying to get a final say of the matter. Sadly, not getting the kill they wanted at the end, but 23% all the way next to the next ultimate is pretty good after such a quick rotation.
Yeah, and with 2.5 minutes ready to go, Hunters still have a little bit of time, and they're switching things up a little bit here. We're seeing Ibrawell coming out now on the Ana, and Bonchef, well, he did switch back onto the Reinhardt before, so maybe trying to go for something a little bit different.
Graviton surge was big, and let's have a look at that sleeping Aethon away in the back, not quite able to get involved in the fight, which is a shame because they did have the ultimate online, so we've missed another opportunity for this Space Jam combo. Radmello does commit the mines to the fight, not able to find anything with it though. I suspect we may see one more... No, we've got time for maybe 2 or 3 more pushes if they are quick and if they're efficient. Radmello finally swapping over onto the Zarya though.
I think it was actually quite a smart move there from Hikari to use that nano boost onto the Redstones because he could see what Radmello was going for. But
maybe not quite as big a shatter there, but still pretty impactful. Stops them in their tracks. Here's Aethon trying to get into the back line. Doesn't find anything. Actually gets the kill stolen by the Redstones. diving the target out the way with the charge, but, you know, it's a team game. You've got to be happy if anyone's getting kills.
Invincibles just have Hunters completely under their thumb right now, because every time Hunters are coming forward, Invincibles have an answer that's holding them back before they even get to the choke point. Yeah, we saw the Wrecking Ball maybe try to get through, but that wasn't really helping the rest of the team, and now every time they try to come through as a team and be able to, you know, use the abilities they have, Invincibles always get there first.
Yeah, so we've got a minute left to go. Bonchef does have the Earth Shadow, but key to this, Chlassi with the sound barrier, if they are clever about their positioning, can completely nullify almost anything that comes out of Hunters for follow-up. So this has to be a really supremely impactful Earth Shatter to get anything done. Vines 2 does actually get Chlassi in it, and that is big, but the Redstones, of course, has a shatter of their own, and the follow-up, Hikari just 1-2 punch the chin of Bonchef, sending him back to spawn. 29 seconds left on the clock. Hunters have got one more bite at this cherry, but it's not a big bite, especially when you lose Eye Broadwell to more or less point-blank Rage Evade.
Evade's just been so perfectly positioned where the rest of his team are receiving all the attention, and he just hasn't been challenged at all. And now we're getting closer and closer to that 10-second mark, and are Hunters even going to be able to get past this choke point, Phil?
Well, they may if they're quick. Send back up right onto the payload, onto the point, just to try and keep it alive. Oh, almost went right the way through. D.Va self-destruct, not finding anything, but in the meantime, kills coming online for Invincibles. Eye Broadwell might have finally got a little bit of revenge on Evade for that final point-blank kill on the last push, but it's not going to be enough, and Invincibles looking pretty dominant, even with the Redstones just taking a quick nap at the end there, feeling so comfortable they can just sleep on the job.
I hate to say it there, Phil, but that's the second time today now that Hunters have been full held by Invincibles. It's got to be hurting a little bit. Oh, and look, of course, just going hulking back to our control map. We're seeing the Redstones out here with the play of the game. You can see this.
Yeah, big Earth Shatter, big Fire Strike, big charge, gets the DMX, and then just swing away. Fire Strike with the backup from Aethon, able to just completely pick apart Hunters.
I think one of the things that really came out in that series that the Hunters just weren't quite on the same page as Invincibles were is that Hunters just couldn't decide what composition they wanted to run. They tried something, it didn't really work out, and then they kept switching things up, which, yeah, to an extent, that's what you want. You want people who are able to switch things up to try and counter what it is they're facing, but they just couldn't quite figure it out. And by the time they got to a point where, you know, they could maybe play a composition that would have helped, Invincibles were already so far ahead in terms of momentum. You know, they were building these ultimates very quickly. They didn't have to use very many of them at once at all to be able to win a fight, and they constantly had the advantage. And then, of course, Hunters would go switch again, and they would go back to zero on the ultimates. And
yeah, and of course, as you were saying earlier on, not just switching heroes, but switching roles within players in the team. So, you know, we've seen Bonchef now play, I think, everything except supports.
I think that's right, yeah.
Yeah,
he's been on the main tank, the off tank, and the DPS roles.
Flexibility is good. It can be a real asset, particularly if you're trying to climb on the ladder, being able to backfill and find whatever your team needs. But in this sort of coordinated environment, you kind of have to have that specialization.
It just very much seemed that they didn't necessarily have a pre-plan going into this map, and I don't know if that's because they were trying to think too far ahead as to predicting what Invincibles may be doing and thinking, okay, what can we do to counter that? Or if it's because they just as a team don't necessarily know what it is they're wanting to be doing on Hanamura. But either way, Invincibles constantly had their number, and they were constantly able to just sort of, it was almost like a cat playing with a mouse and just being like,
We are now 3-0 in the series for Invincibles. We are going to play map 4 just for the final map score, which is, of course, count in determining playoff participation. And we're going to go into Blizzard World.
Can you say this was your favourite map?
No, that was our producer said it was their favourite map.
Our producer, okay, I see.
Mine's Numbani.
Really?
We've just had word from our producer that it's his favourite map because he's a huge WoW nerd.
Is that why we're looking straight over the Horde flag over there?
That's why we're looking at Murloc Island, correct.
Oh, well, Ilios is mine, for the record.
Okay, good. I'm glad we've got that all sorted out.
Now we can actually look at the game, and Invincibles, of course, going to be starting off on the defense here. And actually, at this point, they've won the series. It's just sort of looking like they're thinking, all right, we don't have to give any strats away.
Yeah.
We can just you know, why not? Let's
Yeah.
just play about. We know Aethan's a successful Doomfist. We know Evade's a very, very good hit scan DPS, and why
And
not bring
projectile
out the
DPS.
Tracer?
Yeah, why not? Haven't seen Tracer in a while. Redstone's opted not to run the tank position, finally going over onto the Hanzo. Yeah, I'd be surprised if Invincibles can make this work. It would require some seriously coordinated play, but Etihad takes Redstones out of the fight. First off, they do have a carry there to get the res in if they're quick about it getting in. Hunter's taken his high ground rotation, and we haven't seen that res come through. The Redstones actually have to come right back from spawn themselves, but Evade and Hikari get a quad. Sorry, Hikari brings the Redstones back in the fight. I completely missed that. Evade sends iBroadwell back to spawn, and we've got Atcha 6 in the back, just causing a nuisance, making Hunters turn around and open up the backs of their heads to people like the Redstones, who can just, you know, pop a couple arrows in there and send you back.
Yeah, the Hanzo versus Hanzo, except the difference is Etihad has to deal with the fact that there is a Tracer trying to eat him alive, and that means the Wicked is really going to have to be giving his attention to Atcha, otherwise there's of course that risk.
Yeah, I did nearly see Evade get a little
that
too
was
cocky
too
there.
close for comfort.
Would have been quite satisfying if that had come off. Redstones nearly has that ultimate. Getting very close to lots online here. Atcha 6 nearly get the pulse bomb. Nothing online for Hunters yet. Have had a few changes. Radmiller moving over onto the Winston, trying to dive some of these slightly squishier targets. But it's not going to really be enough because Evade and Atcha 6 are just sort of cleaning up from the back line. Atcha 6 with a pulse bomb kill there. Yeah. What more can you say, really? Invincibles making this quad DPS composition work.
This is the thing, is if you want to, you know, be the attacking team, you want to go for a dive, you actually have to dive, and you have to run that coordination. And once again, we're seeing this thing where we have a Moira being run instead of a Zenyatta, which is going to make a dive harder in the first place. In fact, Radmiller has actually changed off that Winston and onto the Wrecking Ball, which means yet again he's going to have to start building up an ultimate, and missing out on a tank ultimate for this long is actually very difficult position to be in.
Yeah, Etihad does almost come away with the ultimate. Gonna need that to be a pretty big affair if it's going to actually get anything done. But there's no one left alive for Hunters. Invincibles just casually hanging on to this point here.
Yeah, Etihad may be able to come in with the Dragon Strike, but in such a kind of wide geometry that this map has here, it's not actually going to be that much of a risk. You know, the team aren't all bunched up in a small room, and they
they're
can
also
move off.
mobile.
They are very mobile, and they can move off the point and then just step straight back onto it. So I'm not sure how much value it's actually going to bring to the team.
We are starting to see a couple of kills come out there. Redstones does get revived, but Hikari super runnable while that's happening. Etihad taking a very aggressive position here, but getting hassled once again by Atcha 6's Tracer in the back line, and Evade finally taking Bonchef out of the fight. And I think this is where we're going to start to see things level out a bit for the defensive side. Aethon just wanting to get out of danger with that ultimate. Here comes the Dragon Strike. Has it found anything? No, it has not. That's a bit of a shame. Both of those ultimates committed with nothing really to show from it, and Invincibles just look to be in another league at this point.
Yeah, a really key play that we actually saw come out from the Invincibles there was Chalasi putting down the minefield on the left-hand side of the point, which forced the Hunters, if they wanted to actually engage and try and get to the point, to go down the right-hand side, and that meant the Invincibles had complete control over the positioning.
Let's watch where this pulse bomb goes.
Oh,
Doesn't quite get the
stick.
stick. That's a shame. That was nearly very, very dramatic. But still, Atcha 6 is doing a lot of work just by making it difficult for Hunters to actually face the same direction and get the kills they need to proceed. Bonchef right up in the thick of it here. 4.3 seconds left to get on the point.
Finally got rid
They
of the Tracer.
do manage to... they finally taken the Tracer out. Radmiller on Bonchef. Got a quick 1-2 punch there, but Evade getting the better of the Bonchef. Not even needing the gun to do it, just with a quick pop to the face. And Invincibles finally look like they might have done all they can do to defend this. Yes, we've still got Evade up in the back. It's just not going to be enough.
Yeah, I'll be very interested to see if Hunters actually change.
Last second recon test from the Mercy. It's brave. It's brave. I'll give you that, Hikari. Advisable? Maybe not.
Well, what I was going to say is I'd be interested to see if Hunters actually decided to change things up moving on to the next phase of this map. Just looking at it right now, doesn't look like anybody's gone back to spawn, and Radmiller's just trying to get in some poke damage and build up that ultimate.
Yeah, Invincibles, however, have gone, alright, that's enough clowning around. Let's run
Serious
something
now,
sensible.
come on.
Yeah. I didn't realise we could actually lose a map. Yeah.
This can be quite a hard part of the map to defend as well, because there are so many routes around this point. You can go through the middle, around the sides, into the rooms.
Yeah, and of
you
course-
want to be having that control.
Yeah, Hunters have quite a big advantage in terms of their mobility and the capacity just to disrupt what Invincibles have. It's honestly a pretty bad time running a Reinhardt into a Wrecking Ball if the Wrecking Ball is good, because you spend about 90% of your time just off the ground having been swung into. Evade does manage to get the better of Bonchef in that matchup. You do wonder if it's worth Bonchef swapping over onto something that he's not going to be consistently out-sniped on. Rad and Mello gets a kill onto Classy, Etihak with a follow-up onto Aethon, so it doesn't matter that Bonchef is out of the fight. Hunter's taking that in pretty convincing fashion. They've finally got the ball rolling, and we're seeing Rad Mello come in and try and get this last clean-up kill on to Evade. Will they manage it? No, sadly
Damage
Evade
drop-off feels bad.
just get it out of the way.
Well, of course, it's not going to take Invincibles long to get back, although Redstone's falling over there as he charged straight into, Rad Mello. I believe it was.
It was a really good presence of mind from Wicked there with the shield bash completely nullifying that dive coming in. But Evade again getting the better on Bonchef, but whilst distracted gets smashed by a hamster in a mech from above. Hunters 1.3 meters away from actually capping this, and the kills are in their favour. There's just the redstones there with a big shatter. Is there going to be anybody there to actually follow up on it? Well, no, but the redstones doing enough themselves. Etihak, though, taking advantage of the confusion to throw in and get a quick 1, 2, 3, 4 kills in the space of 2 seconds.
I feel satisfied purely from the fact that I saw a Dragon Strike actually get some value there, and it actually was a little bit annoying, of course, for Ibrawell, the fact that once he got up from the Earth Shatter, he was actually brought to his death. Oh, Evade. He was brought to his death just after he got up, before he could fade away. So, he has switched things up now. This is brutal.
Just the mechanical prowess there. I mean, and look at that. Just absolutely taking down those mines as well. Huge,
Crazy
big
plays.
brain plays.
But Hunters do have this Ana now, so maybe, they'll be able to use the Nano Boost, but they'll also be able to use the Anti-Nade, and because Invincibles aren't running a Diva, they're not going to be able to use it.
Yeah, and Key here comes out. Didn't even see Aethon swap over. Already has the high noon, not able to find anything with it. Too much shielding for Hunters, able to just duck out of the way, but there's a Graviton Surge for you. Sound Barrier comes out to keep them alive through it, but a big Anti-Nade in round the back from iBroadwell means it's going to be very hard for them to keep up, and a high charge Zarya receives the Nano Boost. It's time to go and see if we can get anything done with this Atcha 6. Not able to find anything. There's so much mobility for Hunters that they're not really able to lock on to anybody.
It's looking like Hunters actually may be able to keep this going, and I think part of that was, yes, they received that Anti-Nade while in the Graviton, but they'd actually already just had the Sound Barrier. Oh, let's go Bonchef.
Yeah, Bonchef having swapped over onto the Genji, and I'll note that Evade's moved over onto the Genji as well, deciding they don't want to be outdone by Bonchef at any point. What a rivalry, what a good story that makes. Etihak's got another Dragon online, and because of the defensive positioning, you've got to group up in this position, so going to be very, very vulnerable to this, especially if you can get in nice and close. Here it comes, right down the middle, gets out of the way, but Atcha 6 and Evade getting 2 and nothing coming out from that Dragon Strike. Earth Shatter into the Graviton, and Invincibles managing to just completely blast Hunters off the point, but Hunters, having struggled for so long to get point A, just rolled through streets and most of point C.
Yeah, they managed to, of course, Invincibles managed to hold it off right at the end there, so Hunters will be going in with 101.5 meters, and
So
they
precise.
were in overtime. They don't take the whole thing, but this makes it harder for Invincibles because they can't come out with just sort of one of these mess about compositions now. They have to sort of... Well, they could if they wanted to, but I think this is a kind of classic example of you can't go too far down the path of not respecting your opponent.
True.
And so Invincibles, most likely, I think we will probably see something a little bit more legitimate come out from them, because they've won the series, but when it comes down to map differential, they're going to still want to be in that advantageous position, and they actually have a certain distance to get now. It's not just going to be about getting one tick on the first point.
I do want to call you out slightly, having called Invincibles first composition and mess about composition. They did hold Hunters right the way into overtime on point A.
They really did, but I I can't say in good faith that I think it was a serious strategic decision.
No, but speaking of serious strategic decisions, Radmello is actually out and ready to go on a Symmetra. Fine, wasn't what I was expecting. TP goes down, meaning iBroadwell has to take the stairs.
It's certainly an interesting one, given that you actually don't need a teleporter to get anyone up there, because there are stairs.
There are stairs.
Yeah.
Just
so
lazy.
the Symmetra is probably going to be more for the turrets and potentially being able to build up that ultimate and being able to lay down the photon barrier, which will force the positioning of Invincibles, which is what Invincibles have been able to do to Hunters so well so far.
Redstones falls to 1
HP.
HP. You don't see that often. It's normally just enough to take you out. Etihad takes Aethon out of the fight. iBroadwell finally finds Redstones with some of that splash damage coming in from the right click. So Hunter's looking good in this first attack.
Yeah, and actually when you look at the ult charge so far of Radmello, he's really building it up quite fast, so he will have that photon barrier available to him after not long. He's just got to be able to use it at the right time where he's going to get the most value out of it, because you don't just kind of want to waste it at a point where Invincibles can just wait it out.
No, 2,000 HP's worth of shielding is a lot of shielding, and when you look, you know, we've got all these DPS threats with Invincibles. Putting a wall up between them is pretty useful, but losing Bonchef, it's not going to be in a very good state, especially when the Redstones picks apart your main support and then your DPS and your flex support. Redstones, looking pretty good, managing to get a salute off at the end just before taking out the final remaining member of Hunters.
Yeah, and Invincible's actually just about to hit their first ultimate now, which just goes to show that they really didn't need to use that much damage to be able to get that first pick and capitalize off of it. So coming into this next fight, this is where they're going to be building up the ultimates and actually be able to use them into Hunters to get the payload further.
I just want to talk very briefly about the flexibility of some of these players, because we've seen Chlassi playing Lucio pretty much all match, and is now on the Wrecking Ball, which, you know, not two heroes that you typically see in the same hero pool.
Yeah, we saw Chlassi play Wrecking Ball earlier. I was thinking, isn't that the main support?
Yeah, Radmello falls very low, managing just to get out of dodge before getting taken out completely. Etihad goes down, Aethon and Chlassi start to do some work. Atcha 6 now on the Genji. Who hasn't played Genji in this map so far? Invincibles completely in control of that team fight. Hunter's not able to stand up to them at all.
Yeah, and Atcha wasn't actually able to get the Dragon Strike really going off there, because a perfectly timed bubble meant that he didn't really want to be cutting straight into that and just building up Zarya charge.
Yeah, we did see a very cocky Redstones there, not paying attention, not checking the corners, nearly get taken out by Radmello, falling very low.
Came down super low just there.
Yeah, Radmello is just frequently playing with the limits of sensible Wrecking Ball play, often down into, you know, double figure health. I can talk, guys.
You okay there?
Yeah, I'm fine. It's just having a minor stroke.
Oh.
Radmello doing enough work there to knock Aethon off the perch. Hunters looking to be in a pretty good position. Not a bad stagger kill onto Evade either.
That's looking pretty good so far.
Hunters have some tools to play with. They've got a defensive ult. They've got Radmello with the minefield. But, you know, we've seen the Redstones, despite we've seen them play tank for most of this, pretty effective on the Pharaoh. One good barrage from this could be enough to completely flip it.
Well, I suspect what we're going to be looking at is actually iBroadwell's Graviton Surge and seeing how they capitalize on that and build up from it. But Radmello going to be sent straight back to school in Erosion firstly.
Yeah, my prediction here is we're either going to see the Coalescence Graviton or the Bob Graviton, and frankly I'm happy with either of those. Bonchef falls dangerously low, Redstone's in over the top, and Key, they back ultimate has gone. Here we go, the barrage into the back, capitalizes on having lost that. Yes, does get smacked out of the air by Reinhardt, but Aethon and Atcha with the follow-up. They just need to take out this Bob, and they're in a good position to continue with this fight.
That was a very, very sneaky sort of flanky barrage there, and doing a barrage that low is actually generally a very risky position to be in because of, you know, how static Pharaoh becomes while performing the barrage puts you in a really vulnerable position. So Red Mallow
Oh,
almost shouldn't have been able to get away with it.
yeah. Atcha6 manages to get a quick 2 and 1 with a dash reset, taking out Bonchef, and we've just got, it was a valiant effort, Red Mallow, but single person wrecking ball stall swing, probably not enough when you've got so much damage from Invincibles.
So it does look like Invincibles now. They've got their next point. They got 3.5 minutes to
Thanks, Evade.
take it. Thank you, Base Evade. 3.5 minutes to take it now as far as Hunter's got it, and there isn't another point on which they can stall. They have to do it here and now, otherwise it's going to be a 4-0.
Yeah, and they've only got Wicked's Coalescence to do it with. Evade and Aethon both have their ultimates online. We're not far off getting another minefield from Chilasi. Aethon with the high ground positioning there, able to just get in and not do quite enough because Broadwell finds them with the pesky right click, and instantly brought back in by Hikari. Evade falls down to that target focus from Red Mallow, and the Redstone swapping over onto the Tracer.
Using the pulse bomb.
Already getting the pulse bomb. Chilasi struggling slightly there to deal with the strafing from Broadwell. Out comes the minefield, but it's not going to matter because there's nobody left on payload to actually deal to get caught out by the mines. They can just sort of move this past it by getting a little bit closer. There we go.
Yeah, they can just sort of sneak around it, just like then Evade planning the hammer on the
Yeah, well,
my favourite strat.
Yeah, there's a High Noon. Does manage to find Wicked. I thought that was all going to go into the Reinhardt shield, and as we say in it, Atcha6 gets another one of these. Not able to get a kill out of it just yet, has to back out, receive the Discord Orb, had to get into a slightly safer position, but all this time this payload creeping forward. 97 meters, not far to go. They've got to get in, and that's so bad. You managed to just get off the Earth Shatter, but die as it connects, and we may see a stall action here from Hunters, but honestly, Invincibles, this is pretty much their map for the taking at this point.
Yeah, they still have 2 minutes to go, so here we go. We see Hunters coming out. They're using the Transcendence. They're using all of their ultimates here. Invincibles just have to wait for the next engage, and they're able to use their ultimates and their abilities and come in and actually be aggressive in this fight and actually take it.
Evade with a last-minute swap over onto the Torbjorn, manages to get a little bit of damage done with the turret. Yeah, Clutch Torb. That's the only reason they won, was that last-minute swap onto Torbjorn at the end. If it hadn't been for that, they would have taken that.
Yeah, I was really interested as well with Hunter switching onto Sombra right at the end there as well. It's like, come on, you got to get in the fight. They're about to take it.
Yeah.
Of course. Evade coming out as our play of the game for Blizzard World.
Yeah, and we were talking about we hyped up Evade so much, and they've completely lived up to all of that hype.
You know what I actually really like about that play of the game is that he didn't even use a Dragon Blade. It wasn't an ultimate play of the game. It was just really good use of dash resets.
And the fact that they climbed from, I think it was 30% all the way up to 70% of that ultimate charge just on dash resets.
That's what happens,
crazy.
man.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's actually really interesting. You mentioned it earlier, but how at the beginning of the game we were saying how these are very well matched teams. When we compare them to the teams they've played, how well they've done against them, they've been very, very equal. But actually putting them head to head against each other, there have been some close moments. Yeah. But when you just look at the scoreline, it's actually really divided.
Yeah, I feel like at the start both teams maybe not quite fully warmed up, but after that first Lijiang map, Invincibles were just on another level. They warmed up so much faster than Hunters did, and Hunters just weren't able to catch up with them.
I think it does still come down to what I was saying earlier about the fact that Hunters don't have the really hardcore defined roles in their team. We're seeing everyone play a little bit of everything, and that makes it very, very difficult when you're actually trying to prepare strategies, prepare play styles, scrim, to be able to put in the hours, put in the work to get really, really good at what it is you're supposed to be doing, because your opponent's going to be doing that, and if you're not, it's all well and good to kind of be flexible, especially to have, one or two specifically flex players, but if everybody's doing that, it makes it a lot harder, and it means that you are way more likely to display mistakes that can be exploited.
Well, on that note, we are going to go to a short break, but don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back with the second of this evening's games after a short break.
I was a big traditional sports player when I was younger. I have an injury, which means I can't do this anymore, and it sort of fulfills that team aspect for me, and I really enjoy gaming from a young age anyway. My name's James Cowling. I play for Business Strugglers, and my favourite game is League of Legends.
I've always played competitive games. I started at Call of Duty and went through to play CSGO. And when I started playing League, I just wanted to get better and needed to test myself. My name is Jermaine. My tribe is Bristol Smugglers. My favourite game at the moment is League of Legends. For the most part, currently I'm just coaching, but when I do play and sub in, I play jungle.
As a sort of big team sports player, I really enjoy being part of the competition of the clash. I'm really looking forward to representing Bristol Smugglers and helping the team out get some victories as well.
Been going, I think, for 4 seasons in a row now, and I've enjoyed it every time. Whether the seasons I didn't directly play, I was just there just to enjoy the atmosphere and just watch things happen. It's really cool. It's quite nice to kind of grow friendships between the different tribes and even rivalries.
You come down, you'll meet some really nice people who are easy to talk to, similar sort of interests, which you don't always get to meet up to at sort of school and your standard activities. So just come down and enjoy yourself. It's the most important thing.
Welcome back. Here we go, getting ready for match number 2. It's going to be Vikings versus Leviathans. So another team for me that have a lot of people from where I was born and raised up in Yorkshire. We saw Hunters sadly go 0-4 in the last series. So come on, Vikings, let's make Yorkshire proud.
Well, actually, Leviathans are from my homeland of Essex.
Oh, my condolences.
I mean, so it's fine. But actually, I'm excited because I haven't seen Leviathans play. Oh, I actually haven't seen Vikings play.
Yeah, I haven't seen Vikings play.
I haven't seen either of these teams play.
I think it's 3 or 4 teams so far. In fact, one team that we've seen them twice now, and 3 teams that we've not seen at all.
So sometimes it's just a big surprise. But we do know. Well,
nothing worse than a big surprise. Sorry.
It depends how, down with the UK Overwatch scene you are. But actually, a lot of the members of Vikings also play in the Null. So if you, if you watch University Esports, then you may be familiar with some of the players, such as Fabrications, Wallaby, Jimbo. And so if you do know anything about that team, these are players who are known for being really good. So I'm expecting Vikings to actually bring something really great to the table today. These are players who have known each other for quite a while. They like to shake things up. They have the synergy where they can play the GOATs, but they also sometimes like to pull out things like quad DPS, which at this point, especially after the previous series that we just watched, I don't think would come as a massive surprise to us.
Yeah, so let's have a look. We've just spoken about a couple of these players. Let's have a look at the full roster.
Let's see. So there we go on Vikings. We have 5 Jimbo, Greaves, Wallaby, Viola, and Banter.
Well, sadly not going to get much chance to actually listen to any of that banter coming in from Vikings and on Leviathans. BCJ, Mr. Adrenaline, Serendipity, Benny Jelly, Steak Boy Jeff, which it's a great name, and Monster Chafe. And I think we can all agree
the best name.
Monster Chafe is not a thing that anybody wants to experience if we can at all avoid it. Hopefully his play today is slightly more enjoyable than the concept of the Monster Chafe.
Oh man, that's so it's not even something I want to be thinking about. But
let's drive past this comedy cul-de-sac.
We know what the Leviathan's average SR is in sort of that low platinum kind of range. What is it, 2575 according to our records? So they have potential.
Yeah, and this is another one of these teams where we have quite a big range on some of the players. So, we've got BCJ, who's a gold ranked player, but we've also got Mr. Adrenaline, 3654 at the last count in terms of SR, with the potential to see them playing quite a lot of projectile heroes. So, in fact, it's pretty much what I was expecting. BCJ coming out on the Reinhardt, Mr. Adrenaline on the Hanzo. Both teams opting to run the Lucio here, so we're going to get in quick and we're going to get in hard.
Also, both teams opting to run the Mei, which is really interesting. We were saying on the past series that actually you frequently see GOATs be played here on Control Center, but actually having that Mei who can use these ice walls up in this server room up here can really cause chaos and also have the ability to stall on point.
Yeah, that Mei wall coming in there like a hurdle. Vikings jumping right the way over it to secure a couple of early kills. Jimbo taking Benny Jelly out of the fight is going to mean that Vikings going to take initial control of the point, and we are seeing the majority of Vikings running up to try and get some of these close-out kills. I like that Jimbo not falling for that bait from the Mei, looking to get trapped out at the end there, but we are going to see a little bit of a rotation around the Reinhardt. In fact, 3 get caught out here. BCJ not able to get much out of that positioning. Jimbo falling is quite a big opening for Leviathans, though. Losing your main tank so early in the fight is a difficult position to come back from. BCJ has the Earth Shadow ready to go, so this could be just what they need to equalise in this fight.
Yeah, we're very close to that rally on the side of Vikings as well, so we are going to be able to have this sustained through such an engagement. And here we go, the Transcendence is coming out as well.
Yeah, Transcendence coming back in, and the Shatter comes in over the top. But because the Transcendence is in place, nothing really comes out of it, unfortunately. Fives managing to take themselves out there with their own right click. The kills were not quick enough for Leviathans. Vikings able to come storming back in part, thanks in part to Banter with the Transcendence, just keeping his team alive long enough that so much was invested in that fight for Leviathans, and nothing came of it.
Yeah, being able to have that time for Jimbo to actually come back and be reunited with the team, and so ready to come back into the next fight with another Earth Shadow, actually waiting outside this choke point just to use it now.
Yeah, but I think this is potentially, I was going to talk about how impactful this dragon could be, because Vikings want to play together in this big clump, but sadly came out too early, nothing from it. Graviton Surge
the
and the
charge.
Snow Globe in over the top. What a charge. Everybody for Vikings in that kill feed. Leviathans down and out, 70% of the point already for Vikings. It's not looking good for Leviathans. They've just got that Snow Globe ready to go.
I love the use of being able to use May's abilities there, freeze everyone, and just let
Trapped.
Ryan charge straight through. And it means now Vikings, they're being so aggressive.
Oh, and they managed to trap 3 people just out of spawn, and Jimbo gets the kill onto Steakboy Jeff before the Blizzard could actually initiate, so they've lost even that one advantage they had. Benny Jelly does have the Transcendence, catches 2 or 3 in it, but they've got 8% of the point ready left to get to the point, and there's a Shatter, gonna take 5s down, gonna take ACJ down, and they're not able to get in and even contest the point. What an aggressive hold right by the spawn doors.
I mean, I think all we needed to know about that last fight there was that when we saw Leviathans use the Graviton Surge, we actually saw the Zarya had to back out because not only was she really, really low HP, she also had that Discord Orb, and it just shows how much control the Vikings had over the fight. Even when there was an offensive ultimate being used against them, they were still able to keep control and ensure that nothing could be done to actually fully follow up on it. So now we're going to be moving into Night Market, which personally I find really exciting because I think it's a map where you can see a lot of variety and creativity.
Again, speaking of which, we've got a Widowmaker Pharaoh composition coming out for Vikings. Leviathans, Mr. Adrenaline swapping over onto the other Shimada brother. I couldn't quite think of the name there, but running the Genji on this one. We're actually running, this is a 3-2-1 composition for Leviathans. That's unorthodox. The 3 tanks, 2 supports, and just Mr. Adrenaline looking to do most of the heavy lifting there. Initiation coming in from Jimbo, not able to find too much from it, gets out, but buying space. Wallaby taking an early kill, sending Benny Jelly back out of the fight, and there's Jimbo using that big heavy CC, unfortunately getting counter CC'd by BCJ. You forget the swing of that hammer can knock you out of position. Leviathans have the upper hand here, but they've not really got anybody in a position to properly contest Greaves. So Leviathans do take early control of the point, not enough people left from Vikings to get on the point and contest.
Yeah, Vikings were really trying to go in for this sort of pincer attack here where they'd come in from both sides, but ultimately there wasn't really enough damage being dealt onto Leviathans to stop them from just kind of wandering on and taking the point there.
Yeah, so this is looking pretty good. Here comes the minefield in already. Surprised we've not seen, there it is, there's the grapple coming out, just managing to get the end of that in onto Mr. Adrenaline. Ooh, very close to coming over onto the edge. Jimbo managing to get a kill with the mine. Whilst that was happening, of course, the CC kill did not come through there. Genji able to wall climb and get out of the way. Vikings storming back in with a recontest, only losing Greaves, and frankly, not even losing Greaves to enemy action, just to the own self-damage from those rockets.
Yeah, and it means now Vikings finally being able to flip over that point before Leviathans were actually even able to take all that much. Just Mr. Adrenaline coming out with his deflect there, just trying to make sure that he's not going to be picked off before the team is actually able to get back through.
Yeah, and I like this initiation that we're seeing there from Jimbo. Jimbo coming in, popping everybody up into the air, buying space for Wallaby to come in and do some damage on the back of that. Mr. Adrenaline does pop the Dragon Blade, but not able to get anything out of it, and in the meantime, Wallaby managing to find him with the old right hook. Greaves taking out Benny Jelly, and this is incredibly back and forth. No one has a full team alive. Greaves and Wallaby with a follow-up may see Vikings just finally hold on to that defense.
I love that Widowmaker's famous right hook. I'm still actually waiting to see Viola bring out her nano boost. I'm very interested to see who she decides to use it upon, and I'd imagine seeing what we've seen from Vikings so far, it will actually be used fairly aggressively, but of course they have to look out from
Wallaby!
Ooh, well, they have to look out for the Graviton that will be coming in from Benny Jelly, but it may be a little while now as the Leviathans are going to actually have to wait for Serendipity to make his way back.
Yeah, but we've got a little bit of time. We can wait for a few more ultimates to come online to allow them to break through this lineup, because they've finally got 2 online. Maybe not the most impactful combo. You don't often see Valkyrie Graviton Surge used. They do lose Wallaby. Mr. Adrenaline having finally swapped over onto the hit scan, but Greaves with a quick equalizer, and losing Serendipity here is pretty bad. Look at that, the CC from the Wrecking Ball sending BCJ down into the depths. Nano Boost comes out, and we've got the Nano Hamster, everybody. Not really making much use of it, though, just sort of swinging around the point there. It's maybe not the best ultimate I've ever seen coming out. Here come the minefields, going to get in and make that even harder for Leviathans to get anything done. Over the top, 95%, 96% of the point captured. They're going to have to get somebody in to recontest that, so we have got the overtime wick, and I like that Jimbo right in the back line, onto the head of the Swiss medic nearly gets the CC kill, sending BCJ down. BCJ doing their best, just hold up that shield and hope for the best. It's not going to be enough because you are graviton to the point. Turn around to fight that damage from all angles. And overtime is done, and Vikings taking Li Jiang.
Yeah, really actually quite decisively, and I'm liking the aggression that's coming out, and honestly seeing the Wrecking Ball go down using the pile driver onto the Resurrecting Mercy. That was just, that was BM if I'd ever seen BM there. But here we go, play of the game coming out from Jimbo. Oh, it is going to be this beautiful charge.
Yeah, it's the acute angle, getting in on the top. Oh,
everyone just goes flying.
Coming in like a character that he played in the next map.
Yay, Wrecking Ball jokes.
Yeah.
Those are really new.
I'm at the cutting edge of comedy and Overwatch.
I can tell. But no, I actually really liked a lot of what we saw coming out of Vikings there. And actually, those were a really good example of being able to see a team who does have the flexibility to be able to kind of switch. We saw Viola switching a lot. We saw her on the Lucio. We saw her on the Ana. We actually saw her on the Moira right at the end there. And it was just a very, very good kind of rotation of the heroes that you want to be playing, but also an understanding of how each other are playing. And I did mention it at the start, these guys have been playing together for quite a while, and they play on other teams as well. They're all good friends, and when you kind of got that synergy, you're able to get away with these things and actually be able to punish your enemy.
Yeah, it's a thing that we talk about a lot. You can the SR level of a team only tells you so much. It's really down to how well a team works together. I like to think if you've got two teams that are mechanically gifted, that sort of equalises things. It's then the team that knows how to work together and what to expect from the other players on your team. And I think that's the advantage we're seeing for Vikings.
Yeah, and they're going to be starting off on the defense here. Looking like maybe Jimbo's going to be using those teleporters to get everybody up to a specific point on the map. But we'll have to wait and see what it is they actually decide to do here.
Yeah, it's still early doors. I mean,
certainly an interesting choice of composition.
I'd love for Jimbo to run the symmetric. Come on, Jimbo, don't disappoint me. Let's actually. Oh wait, no, they're on defense. This is happening.
Yeah,
Jimbo
that's what I said.
This is me not paying attention. It's I can hear colour casting going on. I'm just going to tune back in once something actually happens and not pay too much attention. BCJ moving over onto the Winston, clearly the main tank player with that specialisation. Ooh, dangerous positioning from the Roadhog. Managing to get, no, not getting out of that. Wallaby having played on the Widowmaker previously, now moving over onto the Roadhog, and frankly not getting a lot of value out of that in the initial fight. Leviathans with the upper hand here. Vikings may have been a little bit overconfident. Oh, that was so close to that Reinhardt going over the edge there, and of course with the Winston it would have the jetpack up in time to secure that kill, or so avoid that kill even. So, you know, I was ready to call this as Leviathans maybe getting the upper hand, and I think we're going to continue to see that. Steak Boy Jeff on the Wrecking Ball doing a lot of work just to disrupt the lineup from Vikings. Here comes, that's a nice early barrier coming out for Jimbo. This Symmetra pick, maybe not quite the troll pick we thought it was going to be.
Yeah, bringing out the photon barrier, as I said actually earlier, you know, it means that you can actually start to control the positioning of the enemy team, because of course they can't fire in damage through that wall, but you can. So it has actually meant that Vikings be able to turn things around there, because I think what they were originally going for is some sort of anti-dive composition, you know, especially with the turrets at the top, and actually having a Roadhog would be able to buy into that, but obviously the Roadhog got taken down very early and things didn't quite go their way, but they have managed to turn it around.
Yeah, and doing some serious work. Yes, we lost Wallaby in that exchange, but frankly, when that fight was over so quickly and so cleanly with the DPS from Vikings, it doesn't really matter, especially when Wallaby's going to be back in a few blinks anyway.
I mean, that is the thing when you have a spawn so close, but actually Wallaby is switching on over to the McCree now, which again does buy into that anti-dive sort of thing. You can use the flashbang to prevent a Winston from jumping on you, fan hammer in his face and bring him down, and all of a sudden your enemy team doesn't have a main tank to protect them.
Yeah, and I like this. Fives on the lower ground in the backline. Everybody always underestimates the top, but he's there piling in that consistent damage, and that damage that does not fall off with distance.
Ooh.
Molten Core comes out, and the sleep was big coming into Mr. Adrenaline. Jimbo with the follow-up. It's the minefield coming in as well from Steak Boy Jeff. I assume we're going to see a swap there, because there was no way you want to commit that after you've just lost a fight so convincingly.
Yeah, we'll have to see just as he's able to press H, although it's looking like maybe
Yeah,
he's going
sticking
to...
with it.
Oh no, here we go. Here
There
comes the
we
Pharah.
go.
So the Pharah is actually going to be a lot harder to reach, but with Wallaby on that hit scan hero, it's going to be... he's going to have to play a little bit more conservatively to try and avoid those hit scan bullets.
Yeah, we need one of these ultimates to come up big. We've got a High Noon for one out of that High Noon charge really, really quickly for Wallaby there. But the self-destruct managing to take Viola out of the fight. Jimbo falling to Mr. Adrenaline. And finally, 5's going down. We're going to see Leviathans actually in a position to take this fight and maybe start to get some progress on the payload. Yes, Greaves gets the finding kill onto Serendipity, and the charge is not going to be enough. Greaves falling very low, but he receives the nano boost. He's in there and swinging. There's no one else left around him, though. That's unfortunate. 1-0 invested to not a lot of effect. And Jimbo swapped over now, having had enough of playing one typically non-meta hero, moving over onto the Doomfist, able to survive and get a quick 1-2 on the Doomfist.
Yeah, that that nano boost there was really just to try and keep Greaves on the point and keep contesting, but of course it didn't really work out. So now Leviathans, as you said, they're able to kind of start walking forward, although as the rest of Vikings have kind of come back from spawn, we're under 10 seconds, Phil, and they're holding it pretty well.
Yeah, and look how quickly Jimbo got and used and got results with that ultimate. Mr. Adrenaline gets shattered
that
before he can get even
last
close to
shatter.
the point. Wow, that is not a lot of progress on point A. It's not a lot for Vikings to do to take this map.
You know, I think, again, it's been a consistent pattern, I have to be honest, Phil, but it's all about kind of keeping control over the enemy positioning. You know, Vikings really prevented Leviathans from even being able to utilize the high ground whatsoever because they had the Symmetra turrets up there at first, and obviously when you started running Wallaby on the McCree, you don't really want to be diving down onto that, and Leviathans were just trying to push through, and they did actually have one big attempt to try and control the positioning in return, and that was when Vikings used their photon barrier. Leviathans actually threw in the self-destruct, and it did end up catching Viola out, but what it also did was meant that the other members of Vikings had to move forward closer to the attacker's spawn on the other side of the photon barrier to try and avoid that damage, and that pushed them into the position that Leviathans wanted. So they're trying to fight fire with fire, but I think just Vikings had the edge there. There were so many different sources of damage, like the Torbjorn turret, like the Symmetra turrets, whatever else, that just meant that not only was it hard to pick a dive target, but actually once you attempted the dive, you were pretty much in the disadvantage anyway. So Vikings, they haven't really got very far to take this payload.
Yeah, Leviathan's running a bunker composition here, opting for...
Your favourite?
One of my favourites, certainly. Opting for the Orisa and Bastion combo, but... You know, with where we are with the payload, where the payload has to get to, they've kind of got one fight with this setup, and if it doesn't work, if the dive is too good and too strong, then it's really just one fight and done.
It really is a big risk like that.
Yeah, but there we go. Stinky Boy Jeff does get that first kill. Jimbo going down early, of course. Doomfist able to get right back into that fight nice and early. And they're doing quite a good job here of just sort of distracting the Bastion. Steak Boy Jeff.
Oh,
there.
that anti-nade's huge.
Anti-nade is massive. Allows Wallaby to get in and quick the D-Mech and the kill onto BCJ. And frankly, they can just afford to stay on the low ground and out of the line of sight. Ooh, Greaves falling very low there, but does take out Mr. Adrenaline. Steak Boy Jeff falling to Jimbo on the Doomfist. Here comes Greaves in the top just to find those two pesky healers. They're able to keep each other alive. The Greaves has to back out, falling very, very low there.
Yeah, once you've had to relinquish your position on those bunker compositions, it's very easy to sort of roll over you. And of course, having Greaves there going for the Mercy means that she's not even able to resurrect any of her teammates. And now as
We've
the
got a hammer kill,
Vikings are just
hammer
so
kill,
easy.
hammer kill in the kill feed. Steak Boy Jeff manages to take out 5s, but it's not enough, and Vikings just run right over Leviathans.
Yeah, and so now already at the halfway point in this series, and Vikings are showing supreme dominance.
And can I just say, Symmetra play of the game. How often do you get to see those
Jimbo
these
again.
days? Jimbo.
Let's see what he brings
Charging
out.
right up on the barrier. such a high level of charge, it just melts people. I do feel like Symmetra is one of these characters that does not get the respect that they deserve. You can pour out so much damage.
Yeah, and you can always tell when a Symmetra's really high charge because, of course, her beam goes very fuzzy, and I don't really know how best else to describe
it starts to go wom 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 wom. If we're going to get technical about it.
Okay, yeah, that's the technical one. But not only do you obviously have those turrets, you have the photon barrier and the teleporter. She's actually got so much utility. She can also deal so much damage if you can get in there and get close enough. And if people don't respect you and they're not going after you, then it's basically free damage.
Yeah, there we go. You heard it here, folks. Respect Symmetra. But we're halfway now, and Vikings with a 2-0 lead in the series. And next up, I think we're going to Hanamura, 2CP Central.
Yeah, we should be going to Hanamura, which this will also be very interesting because if we're likely to see Vikings also run one of these kind of slightly more unorthodox defenses, of course, they're going to be starting off on the attack, so we're going to have to pause that thought for a while and wait to see what Leviathans decide to do. And it's looking like they're actually going to be attempting to bring out the Mei once again, very similarly to how they did on Control Center.
Yeah, nice starting close up with those dragons. Always nice to admire some of the scenery in Overwatch. Of course, everything happens so quick and so fast. We often don't take the time that we need to just sit back and admire the scenery.
I think the cinematic that's done in Hanamura is maybe my favourite one.
It's a very good cinematic.
It's a really good cinematic. But I just really like Genji.
Yeah. You're a weeb at heart, aren't you?
Maybe when I was 14.
Okay.
I just think he's cool because he's a cyborg, you know?
Yeah, that's exactly what a weeb would say.
Well, you know what Fives would say is bweep bweep, because on their attack it's actually looking like they're going to be trying to come at they're going to be coming out with the Bastion, which isn't so common on an attack. But, you know, if they can just kind of set up and he can sit behind Greaves' shield for a little... Oh, actually, they're going to use the teleporter!
Yeah,
they're going to use the teleporter! Ooh, let's go.
It's going to be a classic. Here we go. TP is up.
Straight
Reinhardt's
in.
through. Everybody's in. In comes the Bastion, setting up Maywall in position just to try and buy a bit of time and space. Fives does get frozen, but of course we've got Greaves there with the shield to help keep them alive, and we're already at 2 points captured. Fives just racking up that ultimate.
BCJ.
Mr. Adrenaline does secure the kill onto Jimbo, but it just ain't enough.
7 minutes, 20 seconds to get point B, and really that's such an example of the attackers becoming the defenders, because if you can use the teleporter to just really quickly get in, look, they're probably going to use it again to actually hop across onto this left hand side, which you actually see people very infrequently use as they make their attacks onto point B. There we go, they're managing to now, but I hope you've got your interact key bound.
Yeah, it's a shame Monster Chafe wasn't there to punish that with the boop kill. Mr. Adrenaline taking out Fives is a nice big opener onto this point, but Wallaby Monster Chafe gets 2. That's what we were looking for a little bit later in the fight. Greaves and Benny Jelly getting the equalizers on that means that, yes, we've got Greaves on the point, just trying to swing that hammer, maybe looking to get this final bit of ult charge, does take out Monster Chafe, and frankly, you've got your hammer down, you can afford to go back to spawn.
Yeah, they didn't actually quite manage to get 1 tick, but they do look like they're actually going to be returning with this same composition, unless Wallaby changes now that he has just used his Blizzard. We'll have to see, but Mei is exceptionally valuable on point B, so it would actually surprise me. But oh no, here we go, changing over to the soldier, so he should be able to occupy the high ground, and if he can build up that tack visor, then he can actually, you know, without having to use an aim, get easy damage, especially while Leviathans will be distracted trying to deal with Fives. This is very cheesy from Vikings, but I really like it.
Yeah, it is actually a really hard nut to crack. Mr. Adrenaline takes the early kill onto Viola, and Banter, key there, having used that Coalescence, gets booped off the high ground, not able to do too much with it to either damage or protect his team. Fives going all in on this configuration tank form, does find BCJ, manages to set up on the point. Yes, the Wrecking Ball's coming in, but hammered down right away. There's the D-Mech, and we've just got the Pilot Diva form who goes down as well, and we're going to see 2.5 ticks before a recontest can come in. BCJ, they're not actually able to get a foot on the point.
There we go. And the thing with that Shadowfill is, you know, in that situation, the people who were, you know, lying on the floor after being shattered, they didn't even just... Lazy. They didn't even just have to worry about the fact that there was a Reinhardt who would potentially charge. The Bastion was actually also situated down on the point too, and so you had the minigun being sprayed straight into you. And actually, one thing I've been really impressed with Greaves as well is straight after that, instead of expecting the Bastion to get up and actually move, Greaves immediately went back and was standing right by his side and using the shield to protect the Bastion as Leviathan started to come back onto the point. And if you kind of pay attention to the things that Vikings have been doing, they've very, very much been using their resources around like one player. In this case, it has been Fives. They brought out the photon barrier to protect him, and then he came out with the tank configuration, and then Greaves was playing around him. And it's this level of coordination, being able to actually play around the player who you know is going to be your win condition.
Yeah. So you mentioned something that I have a little bit of a problem understanding.
Okay.
It's called a minigun, right? It's
Yeah, it's quite
huge.
big.
It's massive.
I actually, if anybody knows the etymology of minigun, then by all means tell us, because I've always wondered as well.
Yeah.
I've always wondered. And in other games, they're always just basically the size of a human body.
I assume it's ironic. This is my minigun. It's 3 stories high.
But no, here we are. We're seeing Vikings actually starting to set up their own... Vikings setting up their own defense, of course, and they're actually going for something very similar to what they did on their attack, except, of course, using that static Orisa instead of going for the Reinhardt. And the great thing is going to be, if they can get out the Supercharger, they'll have that 50% damage boost, which is going to make them even more deadly.
Yeah, it's going to feel bad for Leviathans coming in on the dive. It's going to be so hard to dive this defensive position. The last thing you want to do is present that big gorilla face directly into the line of fire of a Bastion. So they've got to be really careful about how they make this rotation. And yet, this is what I wanted to see, coming in around the house, going right the way around the back, avoiding a lot of that damage. Vikings are going to have to very, very quickly reposition if they want to recontest, and you can just see from the outlines there, they're already set up, ready to go. They've bought themselves a little bit of space using that May wall for Leviathans to get in, but this is a perfect set for Vikings. Such a clever rotation, such a good rotation. There just isn't the focus there to get in and put the damage onto the targets that need it. There we go, Greaves with a quick 1-2 punch, taking out Stakeboy Jeff and BCJ. I like the wall from Stakeboy Jeff. Sadly, all it did was give Fives a better angle of attack onto the incoming team.
Yeah, actually, Stakeboy Jeff is doing something which is what I was kind of hoping that they would do, and attempt to use that May wall to actually block off some of the incoming damage and be able to carve out their own path, because a May wall, it takes 500 damage per pillar, so it is actually does take a little bit of effort to be able to bring it down, and that does give them time to get around. But of course, there Viola just noticed that Benny Jelly, obviously with the defense matrix, would be able to eat a lot of damage. Straight up, just banged that sleep on him, and it made it so much easier.
The Leviathans are very close to a win condition here, because in fact they've got it online. They've got the Dragon Blade, they've got the Nano Boost. Here comes both. There's 2. Jimbo and Viola going down. Does get stunned. Fives manages to get the DMEC in the meantime. Stakeboy Jeff with the follow-up. Fives on a tear here. And we've got... Oh, Wallaby pops the attack visor. Mr. Adrenaline, without any of the deflate left to go, means that Wallaby can just come storming back in. Completely, basically, one person recontest that point.
And that's the issue that Mr. Adrenaline faced there when trying to bring out that Dragon Blade, was that he was going into a soldier who was healing himself and a Brigitte. So if you go for the Brigitte, she's got a shield, and you also have the soldier who is able to deal in damage while going for her. But if you go for the soldier, then of course the Brigitte can shield bash you, which is exactly what happened.
Yeah, and there's another really strong combo coming on for line for Vikings. There goes Configuration Tank Form. Doesn't have the Nano Boost ready to go. Maywall very good at blocking out a lot of the damage, but is it going to be enough? Well, quite possibly. Benny Jelly and Mr. Adrenaline taking out 2 key figures in that. Mr. Adrenaline finally has the space to do what they want with that big old weep stick. Wallaby receives the Nano Boost, manages to take Serendipity out of the fight. Stakeboy Jeff gets the equalizer. No Annas left online for anybody. Attack visor not going to be enough, because Ben Jelly gets the kill onto Wallaby. The follow-up onto Greaves is going to see Leviathans finally take point A. But they've got a whole 2 minutes less than Vikings did, and they're already down on time for their second attack.
I actually never thought I would see a Bastion attempt to thread the needle, and I feel like I've actually, seen something new now. But actually, it's looking like Leviathans now, they're going to be going around the more traditional route when you try to take point B, is when you come in around this right-hand side, and frequently you see a Reinhardt be played, and you can use the shield, but actually, I think maybe going through main? Are they going through right? Oh, okay. Yeah. We can see where everybody's set up on Vikings now, and they're just trying to decide regardless of where they come in through, they're going to be in the direct line of sight of Vikings, and so they're going to have to get ready, mentally prepare themselves.
Yeah, and of course, Jimbo there as well means that there's even more of a threat, particularly at close range. You do not want to be right up against a Symmetra. Here comes the D.Va self-destruct, and it does find 5. Sadly, that photon barrier, not enough. Here comes Mr. Adrenaline, bringing out the Dragon Strike, gets a quick 2 with that Monster Chafe, finding Jimbo. There's the 3rd for Mr. Adrenaline, and we've just got Greaves left on the point. Banter finds Steak Boy Jeff, but of course, with the follow-up from Greaves there, Vikings are able to bring in a really, really quick recontest, and despite having pumped so much into that fight, Leviathans not able to crack that nut. BCJ thought he was safe. Sadly, no. Wallaby found you. Wallaby put one in your skull.
And that's one of the disappointing things that you kind of see is sometimes a team, they know their win condition is to wait until they have a certain ultimate. In that case, it was the self-destruct. That's why you saw them hanging around in the door. And when it doesn't work out, it means they really have to be sent back to 0. And now Vikings, they've changed things up, so they have the Widowmaker and the Tracer now instead of running that Bastion. But they still have the turret in the form of Jimbo. But now they've got Greaves, who he doesn't really have to worry about shielding any one particular person. He can actually go around doing this dive, maybe block off one of the entrances with his bubble shield. And nonetheless, this is still going to make Leviathan's life very hard, especially now they've just lost their main, their Anna.
Yeah, really, if you lose your Anna that early in the fight, you don't want to commit too much more, because you can't keep up with the damage that's going to be pumped in from Vikings. You're just going to feed them charge. Jimbo already at 40% ult charge. Greaves using that Primal Rage. A quick check-in with Benny Jelly there. Sadly, Benny Jelly not around to actually spectate anymore. And Vikings fend them off once again. So we've got 2 minutes, 37 seconds left on the clock. We've got a couple of things to play with for Leviathans. We've got a Dragon Blade, we've got a Blizzard. That's not a bad combo.
Well, the thing is with the Blizzard is it works so well if you're going in against, you know, a Goats composition, because everybody's going to be on the point. But actually with the composition that Vikings are running, it's actually questionable as to how valuable that could be.
Yeah, and of course out comes the Dragon Blade. Banter, having used the sound barrier, meant that a lot of people are actually going to stay alive through that. So Mr. Adrenaline now kind of trapped behind enemy lines, but does receive the sound barrier. Here comes the Blizzard, here comes also the Molten Core. Why those two things don't cancel each other out, I have no idea. Self-destruct in over the top, nothing coming out of it. Does allow the D-Mech to come off. Wallaby and Greaves, though, with the clear. Greaves doing a lot of work here. What do you think how little damage Greaves' gun actually does on the Winston? It's amazing that he's able to find so many kills.
Well, you know, at least there is, of course... well, I was going to say silver lining, but actually I was getting my teams mixed up just then. Yeah, Greaves is actually getting a lot of value out of that Winston. Sorry, I was just so distracted by the fact that Leviathans must be feeling like they are running headfirst into a brick wall here, because they are consistently coming up with a win condition, and it's not working out for them. They're being outplayed. You know, in that case, there was the case of that Dragon Blade. It was the case of the Blizzard coming out, and of course there was the Molten Core and Vikings just being able to completely capitalize on those things. And it didn't help that when they brought out the sound barrier, Serendipity was actually not in the line of sight of the Lucio and didn't receive those shields. That makes it very hard. Now Benny Jelly already being lost before they've even reached the point.
Yeah, and Stakey with Jeff going down as well. Less than a minute now. And if I was looking at Vikings lineup, if you told me this and nothing else about the teams coming into this team fight, I would have given this to the Leviathans every day, because this is not what you would call a meta team composition for Vikings.
It certainly isn't a meta team composition, but it's about figuring out what works for you and actually being able to... I think this is the thing.
Mercy, take out
Mercy.
Monster Chafe. Viola, how could you?
Always like the Caduceus Blaster. But, it's the thing, it's about understanding how you're going to use your abilities in conjunction with one another. And we've said it before, but it's all about this synergy where they know what each other are doing.
But here we go, Mr. Adrenaline has the Dragon Blade, receives the Nano Boost, able to click 1-2, and it looked like Vikings were going to be held up in, or going to be able to hold Leviathans in spawn, but they did not reckon with Mr. Adrenaline getting the quick 1-2-3k. They've got to get in and recontest, otherwise we are going to go to round number 2. It is a big time differential. Overtime Wick has started, and we've got the Molten Core in. We've seen the Pulse Bomb come alive, but Leviathan starting to get the kills they need. Viola gets the second kill of this fight. Jimbo finally getting some value out of that Molten Core. We have seen Vikings move out on some quicker heroes to get onto point to keep this contest alive. Viola gets the res off. Here comes the initiation with a pile driver coming in from Wallaby, and that is going to send everybody from the Leviathans right the way out. And you did just see, yes, I'm sorry to report it, we did see that gorilla bullying a poor old lady in the corner.
And it must have been so heartbreaking, you know, they're so close to that final tick and it just kind of going down at the end. They're so close, yet so far. Here we see your boy Monster Chave. Actually, it's really nice to see a Lucio getting the play of the game, but I guess when you boot people off the side like that, and that's a really good example of, you know, being able to see what Vikings ran on the first point and seeing the composition that they're staying on, you can kind of figure out that they were going to go around that side. So, of course, Lucio taking his chances and being like, there's an environmental kill there for me.
Yeah, I love this playmaking style of Lucio, because you can play Lucio as like, I'm a heal and speed bot, I stick with my tank and I go here. You also get Lucio's go, do you know what, tank? I've got an idea, and there you go. You get those beautiful two environmental kills. I wish that had been a little bit closer to actually coming through on the teleport. Just like that little bit of precognition to get them as they come out of the teleporter, just to send all 6 off into
We're
the air.
going over
Be
here
great.
now.
Yeah, here you go. This is where I think you'd like to go. But that does mean we are 3-0 in the series. Vikings coming out on top. We've got one more map to go just for map point differential.
Yes, and it will be Blizzard World like it was in the last series. And, you know, what we saw last series was actually looking very much like it's going to be a full hold and then going actually quite far. So I wonder if something similar will happen, if we're going to be seeing another sort of, I hate to say it, but it is cheesy composition coming out from the Vikings again. That would be kind of interesting.
Yeah, I don't know if we'd call it... Okay, so yes, the Orisa Bastion...
Do you think Bastion Sim isn't cheesy?
I was going to say that we did see some cheese, but we did also see a couple of nice swaps. We saw some non-meta... If we've seen non-meta heroes all the way through, not always in that cheesy composition. Yes, I'm going to walk it back slightly. We
Just
did
because
see a
it's
little bit of
gourmet
cheese.
doesn't mean it's not cheese. You can have your local takeaway pizza, or you could have, you know, a Michelin star pizza. It's still cheese.
Yeah, I think that I'm going to take that away as a coaching tip. Just because just because it's gourmet doesn't mean it's not cheese. Your cheese was American pre-sliced. This one is high quality gorgonzola.
Well, Vikings are going to be starting things off on the defense, so that is going to give them the advantage from the get-go. And so they're going to be kicking things off. No Bastion in sight, but Fives is looking like he's going to be going with that Symmetra.
Yeah, and you know we've seen that work pretty well for Jimbo here. I do feel a little bit like Vikings have gone, well, you know, we've got the first three maps. We can just sort of afford to swap roles, because, you know, Greaves was our tank previously, is now playing Hanzo. We saw Banter, I think, running the Lucio in the previous rounds, is now on main tank. Everyone swapped over Leviathans, though. This is kind of, well, do you know what? It's an interesting sort of 2-2-2 composition. We've got a couple of snipers, we've got that speed boost, we've got the sustain coming in from the Moira. They know what to expect in terms of damage. So, you know, if ever there was a tool to crack this nut, I think Leviathans might be in a good position to do just that.
Well, straight up.
Straight up. Stormbow to the face sends Jimbo right back out of the fight. That's an opening, though. Interesting that they're still opting for this high ground rotation. They know that they are up in the team fight. They can afford to be a little bit more aggressive. Wallaby, though, gets the equalizer. Serendipity going down. They are now 5-5 in the fight. But, of course, we're going to see Jimbo back in this fight nice and early compared to Serendipity coming back in. And, yeah, Five's already going to work with the Photon Blaster, able to charge right up on the Reinhardt shield and then just pile all that damage into the rest of the team. Yes, Steaky Boy Jeff gets a parting shot, but it's not going to be enough as Vikings continue to hold point A.
Yeah, and we saw it there as Wallaby actually got his kill there onto Mr. Adrenaline, but as the Leviathans were taking this high ground rotation coming out of that small room, it sort of means Vikings were moving forward to try and you know, deal with them, defend, and in order to prevent any sort of backcapping from Leviathans, Wallaby went around the other side of the point and was able to be sort of Fragiata to stop anyone getting any closer.
Yeah, well, Fragiatas is what we like to see, channeling your inner Jonak. Vikings have the one tool to play with, very close to getting this Earth Shadow online for Banter. Leviathans, on the mean hand, do just about have that Dragons. In fact, there we go, it's just ticked over now. But it's quite a mobile composition. There's a lot... Oh, that shatter! Sadly getting slept on the back of it. Fives, though, taking BCJ out of the fight. And there we see the follow-up. Yes, we lose Wallaby in that team fight. But honestly, so many people left alive for Vikings. that Leviathans aren't really going to get a look in there. Still, Leviathans committed one ultimate to that fight. It didn't quite work out for them, but they are still in a position to go again with some stuff in the tank to play with.
Yeah, and you heard me call that photon barrier there, and actually it was really well timed, because that was the exact moment the Leviathans were going to actually start dealing all their damage in, and it was just very, very cheeky there from Vikings.
Yeah.
Now we have BCJ receiving so much healing to actually be able to aggress, but he does have that discord.
Yeah, nothing coming out of that self-destruct. Fives, though, with those turrets taking out Steak Boy Jeff and taking out BCJ. Here comes the Shatter in over the top. Everybody getting a piece of that pie.
I think we're seeing a lot of aggression come out from BCJ, and he's receiving a lot of resources. He's getting a lot of bubbles. He had that coalescence straight onto him, and it means that as he's going forward, that's when Vikings are actually seeing their, opportunity to go in on the rest of the team, which is how we just saw Banta land that Earth Shatter and be able to take down 2 members of Leviathans himself. So I'd like to see BCJ actually sticking a little closer to the team, maybe a bit closer to his Zarya. He is receiving the bubbles, but he doesn't want to give that over to Vikings.
But win condition here for Leviathans. They've got a nice 1-2-3 with the sound barrier and the graviton and the nano boost. If it comes out and it's big, this could be just what they needed. Yes, nice focus from Benny Jelly, but it's not going to be enough. Fives just with those pesky little turrets managing to take out Benny Jelly and rob almost all value out of that huge graviton.
Yeah, and you can see how much that Zenyatta Wallaby is showing up in the assists there, that you can see just the target calling is really good. Vikings very coordinated with who they're actually going for. And now Leviathan's actually switching things up a little bit, maybe coming in with that McCree now with Mr. Adrenaline changing things up, but they do have just about 10 seconds to go.
Yeah, they need to be quick. They've got to get in and start clicking those heads if they're going to get into Greaves in a very dangerous position there, managing to just back away under the influence of that shield. Of course, Leviathans have to get on point and start doing some of the lifting that's required. We have lost Banter, though. You do not want to lose your main tank, especially when BCJ is still up. There's the Shatter, comes inside. Not really able to connect with anything. Leviathan starting to show up in the kill feed. BCJ taking Greaves out of the fight. Ooh, very close to losing Steak Boy after that self-destruct there. And they allow Viola to get in and remake. Bit of a misstep. We've got 3 online for Vikings. And we've got the Transcendence in to keep everybody alive. Banter does get... Oh, Banter gets that big anti-nade to the face. Does commit the Shatter to the fight, but is not around to follow through. So we may see Leviathans take this in overtime. Greaves coming back in on the Wrecking Ball. Doing the best just to keep this alive as long as possible, buy some time for the rest of the team to come in, but Banter has only just come back to life. They're not going to be able to get in. Here's the high noon around the back, finds Fives, and surely this is going to be the end of this recon test.
They don't even have 1 tick yet, Phil, and all of these resources are being used. The bubbles, everything, all of their healing, the nano also used, and they still haven't been able to keep Vikings off the point.
No, and there's the Graviton coming in once more, but we have got Banter back in the fight, and there's the Photon barrier. We are still 2 for 2 in the fight, and at this point the overtime wick is going to be so quick to take down that Leviathans cannot afford to take a foot off the point. Here's the Transcendence again, the second in this team fight, and we're going to see this kill start to come in. Monster Chafe goes down, and you know what, it was such a good effort from Leviathans at the end there, but Vikings just able to keep the pressure up all the way through.
It was a good effort, but then you had that minefield put down at the end, combined with the Transcendence, really meant that Leviathans didn't have much of a choice. They couldn't exactly stay on the point there. They had to back out a little bit because they were either going to die or they were going to step off the point, and that's exactly what happened. BCJ wasn't able to come in with that Earth Shadow quite at the right time at the end there. So also another thing that I noticed was Jimbo constantly going around these really long commutes to get behind BCJ to try and boop him away as he was shielding, particularly when he was shielding from the self-destruct, and he wasn't getting punished for it.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. So Leviathans have a lot to do here to keep Vikings off the point. I hope you've been enjoying this little micro tour of Blizzard World our producers very kindly given us.
Oh, it's our Whoa, don't give
Observer,
credit to the wrong person.
sorry.
Shout out to Sunken.
Yeah, big up Sunkern.
Actually, is it Sunken who's...
I don't know anymore. Let's move on. It's Dom. Thanks, Dom.
Shout out to
there
Dom.
we go. Shout out to Dom. The Vikings obviously have their attacking phase now, and do you know what? I'm ready to call this as what they're going to run, because we've seen Fives run this previously. Leviathans, not a terrible composition, certainly plays to some of the strengths that we've seen. BCJ, relatively effective on the Reinhardt, sadly maybe not quite getting the better of his opposite number for Vikings, but still possible for them to take this.
I think the thing with this composition the Leviathans are running is what they're going for is being able to pump the resources into BCJ, because with Reaper having the 50% lifesteal and Soldier of course having his own biotic field, the idea is that they won't need as much support from the rest of the team. So I think that's the plan, but you know, whenever a Reaper comes out, it's always here and there.
Can I just make a point of where the damage boost from the Mercy is going at the minute? Is going into Wallaby. Wallaby on the Moira getting most of the benefit from that, certainly in the early phases. Here we go. Banter dropping down into the fight. Viola falling dangerously low. Mr. Adrenaline, Benny Jelly and State Boy Jeff able to do quite a lot of that. We still have the damage boost coming in onto Wallaby. Yes, it's ticking up that ultimate, but frankly, Coalescence is not that impactful an ultimate. I don't know why you'd be investing so much into Wallaby.
Oh, you know, it's a very fast building ultimate. I suppose the faster you can build it, the better.
Yeah, fair. Wallaby's still in the back line.
Yeah, still
Ooh,
actually used the fade now, so now it's just sort of like darting around while
playing the
Mr.
footsie game.
Adrenaline.
But to be honest, if you can stay in that position and just keep Mr. Adrenaline out of the fight, you know, 5v5 in the main fight, you can keep that Soldier tied up for quite a long time. Good attempt at disrupting the Mercy there. Sadly, not enough damage coming out. Does bring Monster Chafe back into the fight. And here we go. Kills for Vikings. Banter and Wallaby. That Dragon already online, but State Boy Jeff getting the DMech and the kill onto Fives. Wallaby with a constant DPS in the backline. I don't think I've seen Wallaby commit any healing to this fight yet. It's just been DPS more over the whole time. BCJ just staying alive at the... Nope. Do you know what? I cast a cursed him. Sorry. Jimbo, Wallaby managing to come out at the end there. And Vikings in... well, you know, fairly convincing fashion, take map 4.
It really did not take that much for them, and you know, at first, of course, Leviathans, they took that first fight, and I think they did it in the way that I perhaps predicted, but yeah, I think what was happening there was Mr. Adrenaline, he was trying to cause Wallaby to use his fade and separate him from the rest of the team, but once that was off and the team was back and Wallaby could be that extra damage dealer, because they had Jimbo on the Mercy, they actually didn't really require you know, the extra healing. Like, a Mercy and a Moira is really overkill for healing. I mean, great if you want a lot of healing, but the point is they didn't need to rely on it. And so you could have that extra damage dealer who could also provide the healing if you needed to, and build up an ultimate that fast, which can be used to deal damage, get the tick and a bit that they required, and it was really just easy for them after that.
So my assessment is maybe slightly less generous, which I think that was maybe a slightly BM-y move at the end there. Just running the DPS Moira just because they felt like they could.
I mean, yeah, playoffs really aren't that far away, and a lot of the teams who feel like they could be in for a chance of getting into those quarterfinals aren't going to be wanting to give away their strategies. So when you do have, you know you can get away with it, why not?
Yeah,
why
exactly. Don't give anything away. And, you know, it's fun to watch. It's fun to watch a Moira constantly receive a Mercy pocket, you know. When do you see that? When do you ever see that?
Why not? Yeah, sending out the orbs. Because that's the thing with Mercy. When you have a Mercy damage boost, is it enacts when you shoot your projectile, when you actually shoot it, rather than when you hit it. So you can damage boost the Moira, have her send out an orb, you can go and damage boost somebody else, and then when the orb later hits somebody, the damage boost is still acting on it.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to take that as a lesson in strategy, because I just thought it was BME. But anyway, that saw 2 4-0s tonight, which first one, I don't know, they were both a little bit one-sided. However, still incredibly fun matches to watch. A huge round of applause to all of the teams that were involved tonight. Really, really good fun to watch. And if you've been watching this and you're not already affiliated with Belong.gg and you're thinking to yourself, boy, that looked like a lot of fun, how can I get involved? How can they get involved, Gio?
You can go to belong.gg, which is the website, or you can follow this side, or you can follow all of the social media channels on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and there'll be all the information there. And you can go find your local Belong arena in your town or city, and just go and be like, hey, I want to be on a team.
I want to play Overwatch. I want to play Overwatch competitively. I want to be in a team. Make room. Anyway, that is unfortunately all we've got time for tonight. Hopefully, we will see you all. I think we're going through into the playoffs brackets next. We've got our quarterfinals, semi-finals, finals eventually coming up in the next few weeks.
Yeah.
So things are only going to get more and more intense from here. Hopefully, you'll join us for the next one. Take care and good night, everybody.
I was a big traditional sports player when I was younger. I have an injury, which means I can't do this anymore, and it sort of fulfills that team aspect for me. And I really enjoy gaming from a young age anyway. My name's James Cowling. I play Clipper Strugglers, and my favourite game is League of Legends.
I've always played competitive games. I started Call of Duty and went through to play CSGO. And when I started playing League, I just wanted to get better and needed to test myself. My name is Jermaine. My tribe is Bristol Smugglers. My favourite game at the moment is League of Legends. For the most part, currently I'm just coaching, but when I do play and sub in, I play jungle.
As a sort of big team sports player, I really enjoy being part of the competition of the clash. I really look forward to representing Bristol Smugglers and helping the team out get some victories as well.
Been going, I think, for 4 seasons in a row now, and I've enjoyed it every time. Whether the seasons I didn't directly play, I was just there just to enjoy the atmosphere and just watch things happen. It's really cool. It's quite nice to kind of grow friendships between the different tribes and even rivalries.
Come down, you'll meet some really nice people who are easy to talk to, similar sort of interests, which you don't always get to meet up to in sort of school and your standard activities. So just come down and enjoy yourself. It's the most important thing.